I'm Luke Storey. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you.
Hi, honey.
Hey, darling.
Yeah, here we are. I was thinking a lot the last few days, knowing we were going to have this chat. And I think this is our first time recording together in our house.
I think so. When I was a guest on your show last, I believe it was back in Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles.
Really?
I believe so. No, you know when it was? Maybe over here at the old studio on 620.
Yeah, I was struggling to recall. If either of us had made an appearance on the other's podcast in the last year, like in 2020. I don't think either one of us were on. I don't know. But I'm just happy to be here with you. And it felt special that now that we're finally in our home that we worked so hard to renovate and move into and live in and hopefully start a family in, that now we get to have this recap and slash flow into 2023 visioning chat time together.
I'm excited. It's funny, as we sat down, I noticed that I don't know, nervous might be overstating it, but I had a minor hint of anticipation.
Really?
I think just because I have absolutely no idea what you want to talk about or what we're going to do. And oftentimes when I interview someone else, I mean, I'm very, very prepared and have a really a clear idea of where I hope that it goes. But in this situation, I'm just leaving it up to you. I see you have some notes.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you look either.
I'm excited to see what you come up with.
I mean, I kept it super casual. I didn't spend, I also typically spend a good amount of time researching and preparing. But for us, I just wanted us to honestly have fun and sit down and as husband and wife in our home and just have an enjoyable chat together. And I just fully trust, we always have so much fun together just in general. And whether we're being goofy or having like really deep healing talks, like to me, it always feels of service and of substance in some texture of a way. So I thought to myself, no matter what we talk about, I think there will be something enjoyable for whoever chooses to listen to us.
That's my intention too. That's my intention, as you put this out into the coming year of 2023, we as a civilization have endured a lot over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll reflect on some of that. So as I look into the new year, my intention, at least for this microcosm of a download for people, is to set the stage of positivity and to examine how we might be able to reflect on the lessons we've learned and where we are in a very different world and how we can move forward in a way that's of the highest service to evolution.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to add, though, in terms of, because we're both not memory people, which is funny. We just kind of look to the present or maybe a little bit forward, but like I can't tell you what date anything happened, where we were. But one thing I'm quite certain of is that we have not recorded a podcast together, ordained legally in the United States of America as husband and wife.
Oh. Well, there we go.
I mean, technically that's 2021 news because we were married officially in November of 21.
Right.
But this is our first husband-wife podcast. I feel like we should have matching sweaters. I should have the beautiful sweater you have on.
we both have orange and earthy tones.
I feel like we should be peas in a pod celebrating our family of 4.
Yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to begin. I have at the top of my notes a conversation between husband and wife. Our first year of marriage, how we moved a couple of times, renovated this home, held space for each other for really, really big experiences in our lives, both together and individually, our conception journey, um, you know, some of the things that happened in this past week, which I'm not in the mood to get into details, but we've traversed some very large waves since we got together as a couple, but I feel especially in our first year and some months of marriage specifically. And yeah, I reflected on how my biggest takeaway from especially the marriage time is how I thought to myself, because we're a unit, because we're in this sacred union coming together, of course, then when you're in a partnership, there are going to be things that I am experiencing because they're things that needed to come into your life, things that you needed to experience. But because we're married and we live together and we're in this union, then by complete, obvious default, I'm in that mix as well. And so even if I know it's not quote unquote my stuff, or I know it's your lesson, you're teaching your journey, I'm still in those energetics. And I'm a very sensitive creature and being. But I thought the most beautiful thing came to me that I would so much rather have it that way, like potentially experiencing some challenging or turbulent waves due to things coming into your sphere for your evolution. I'd rather be a part of that and holding space for that and in that mix than excluding myself from that and living alone or being single. And like the text I sent you a couple weeks ago, how I'd rather be with you in your most challenging chapter than anyone else at their best time. And I really mean that. And so that's one of my most significant reflections and takeaways from this past year, and specifically from our first year and a few months of marriage. Are you getting emotional?
No. No, that text you sent me was so meaningful to me. It was really, oh man. It's not the words, but it's what's behind the words. What's behind the words is unconditional love. And to remove any ambiguity from those listening, when she said that text, I was having a rough couple months. The past couple months have been challenging for a number of reasons, some of which have not even revealed themselves. I feel like I'm on the other side of it now, and I'm back to my happy-go-lucky self. But in that moment, I was just, I think maybe I had sent you a text just going, "Hey, like, sorry, I'm such a train wreck right now," and your response was that beautiful one that you just shared with us. But I really felt bad. I was just like, God, if she was me and I was having to kind of put up with this transition that she was going through, I mean, of course I would love you unconditionally, but it would be less than fun. So I was just saying, hey man, thanks for hanging in there. I'm trying to navigate my way through this situation. One of the things for those listening was that, and there's so many lessons from 2022 that we can get into, but one of them, the elephant in the room for me, and something I just like to share candidly about, is that since around 1985, which would have put me at about 15 years old, I've been in one form or another most of those years habitually using nicotine. And I've had there was a long time where I smoked cigarettes, just a pack a day, the whole thing, right?
Which side note is so hard for me to picture. It's
Yeah.
similar to when I saw a picture of my dad. It was before I was born, but then growing up, seeing pictures of him floating in the lake that we used to live on when I was a child. And I think he had like a beer can in one hand and a cigarette in another. And I was like, who is that man? Because by the time I was born, he was already like, we owned fitness centers and he was a runner and he definitely wasn't doing that. So
Your dad was like a fitness biohacker back in the
way
day.
back
You sent me a
before
picture of him doing like contrast oxygen therapy, like the thing we have in the
on a
garage.
bike. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "What?" It was in the '70s or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, for a long time, I thought smoking was great and I enjoyed it. And then many years ago, God, I'm not great at timelines, but I want to say maybe 8, 9 years ago, I like hard stopped, just cold turkey quit cigarettes. Just because I felt like it was a thread into my past and addiction, and it was the last kind of stronghold. Well, I found out there were others in terms of other addictions that you can have that don't involve substances like pornography and gratuitous sex and things like that that I later addressed, thankfully. But I did quit smoking cigarettes, and I think a couple years went by. I didn't miss it, didn't think about it. It was really like my sobriety. It was an act of providence. It's just, I mean, I did my part. I prayed my ass off, and it was just like a genie in the bottle had granted my wish, and poof, it was gone. And then, long story short, over the course of the next couple of years, I experimented with, I smoked a cigar, even though the angel and devil on my shoulders, the angel was like, "Don't do it. It's nicotine." And the devil was like, "It's a cigar, dude. You're not going to start smoking cigars. You're not a 80-year-old golfer." You know what I mean? And I got really addicted to Cuban cigars for a number of years and then quit those and then somehow got on like the nicotine gum and the little nicotine patches. Anyway, it's been this internal battle I've had. And a few months ago, and so I haven't smoked in a long time or anything like that. I did have a brief bout of cigars
when
try
we were together.
when we were first together, and you were not a big fan of that for valid reasons, I must add. So I was knocked that shit out, but then I started using nicotine as a nootropic because it's really great. I mean, it's no accident that the great writers and creators of history have used nicotine and coffee. It's really great for focus and just perking up your brain, and there's a lot of science to even support that. So that was my justification,
Mhm.
right? I
You're
was like,
yeah.
"Ah, I'm getting shit done. I need my
Your
nicotine," you know?
biohacking
Yeah, yeah.
justification.
I promote it, my Lucy gum, my little lozenges here, It's on my website. I'm living the life that I promote. But anyway, a few months ago, I had set the intention when you and I went into a journey, a plant medicine journey, and it came up during that experience, and I made the decision to stop. And the next morning, I threw all my shit away. Actually, I gave it away to my friend Jason, who had no intention of quitting. So it was a good day for him. And then came home and felt really good about it. And then I found some of this Dr. John Zen spray in the refrigerator. There was about half a bottle left, and that's not something I've ever used addictively or abused in any way. It's a useful tool, but it's quite potent and not something that your average person would be using throughout the day. So, again, higher self, lower self one and said, just you finish the bottle, it's no big deal. Got addicted to those, and then really felt like, God, I'm bigger than this. I'm better than this. Like, I don't want to be addicted to anything. It seems like I'm at a place in my life where I should be past that. So I decided to go cold turkey again, on the heels of another really profound experience, incidentally, some months later, and had a very rough time with it. And this was over the past 2 months or so, maybe
I mean, yeah, it feels a little bit longer at this
3 months,
point.
maybe.
Yeah.
And I was really just hanging in there and just hoping that it got better. And because anytime I had quit anything before, like I said, it was just I made a very definite decision and I surrendered it to God, and it has just been removed. And I have not had like reoccurring issues. When I got
Mhm.
sober in 1997, it's like I would never, ever in a million years think of having a drink or doing any kind of drugs that were problematic for me. And so at the time, this recent time when I quit, it was just like, it was very challenging because I felt so off. And I felt like if I would just use nicotine again, I would feel normal again. But that's the addict justification. It's like, well, maybe you're just a person who needs this right now in your life. You're going through, I mean, there's a lot going on in our lives, so it's been a stressful time for a number of reasons. So probably not the ideal time to make a huge change like that. which for me is a huge change because it's such a daily habit. So I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to let the addict in me justify falling off the wagon. I'm gonna stick with it," and I'm sticking with it, and then I find I'm using kratom more to, like, calm down. I'm drinking more of those feel frees and eating more of my coca leaf, my mambe, and just doing other things that are stimulating but aren't per se addictive. At least they haven't ever been addictive for me, but just mentally started using these other things, and I'm just going, "God, I really think I'm just torturing myself." And in the middle of this, aside from just other life occurrences, legal battles and just all kinds of gnarly stuff that I probably don't want to get into, and specifically that have now resolved, thankfully. Um, but then I started getting this really crazy tinnitus. I mean, like really bad to the point where there were moments where I really didn't want to be here anymore. If this is life now, it's just so torturous. And I know people have much worse problems, and I'm, of course, thankful that I'm otherwise very healthy. But
Yeah, but I think it's also, unless you've experienced it, you can't begin to understand what a constant, loud, high-pitched ringing inside of your own brain, inside of your own head feels like, and I the closest I could relate was the day when the cleaning company came, and I'm typically not in the house that day, but this past time I was, and I almost lost my shit when just, like, the nonstop, like, vacuums, like, that certain frequency of sound that just I couldn't escape, and so it helped me. That was, like, the closest I could get because I've never experienced tinnitus to being having more compassion for the crazy making of tinnitus.
yeah, it's absolutely maddening when it's really on. And I've had it for a number of years, and it's sort of at times it's worse than others, and I've just adapted to it and just sort of accepted that it's part of life, and been able to just keep it moving. But this got to the point where it was just really difficult, and it's been many, many years since I've had really dark thoughts where I don't wanna participate in this human experience anymore. I'm not that I'm ever, so bad that I would actually contemplate suicide or something to that degree at all, because there's, a part of me that knows that that's just not an option, and obviously the fallout of that on people that care about me and all the things. And I love myself and I love my life, but in those moments, it's very difficult to access that truth. And so it's kind of, I mean, I was, just at points really just going, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't think I have what it takes to live with this. So anyway,
So anyway on that.
yeah.
So let's pause on
Well,
that, or what.
well, no, there's more to it, and then we can get into it because I think
Okay.
this is valuable for hopefully for people that are struggling with spiritual perfectionism and also just the difference between justifying addiction and other people in the life of the addict enabling their behavior and
Yeah.
giving them a pass or giving yourself a pass just so you continue doing something that's destructive to your life. And my using, like, I don't smoke still, as I said, I'm using like, nicotine gum and stuff. So it's not like that bad for me. It's not interfering with my ability to function or hurting people around me or anything like that. Don't have to break into cars to get money to go buy it and so on. But uh, it's hopefully useful to people to just find acceptance of themselves and where they are at a different point. And I thought that I was at a point where, like, I'm rising above this. I'm putting all this old shit behind me, and I'm going to emerge into what I envision to be a higher and deeper and more thorough level of sobriety. Like, what would life be like if I didn't need anything around me exogenously outside of myself to help me to feel comfortable in my own skin? And so, that was the challenge that I sort of set for myself. And it's been very humbling to arrive at my current truth, which is, that would be great. And I'm going to aspire toward that. But at this particular juncture in life, it became very apparent to me that for whatever reason, I feel much more comfortable having a little nicotine in my system on a daily basis. And so, I don't know, maybe it was a week ago or something. I mean, I really prayed into this and thought into it, and I fought the battle, man. I mean, I really hung in there much longer than I probably should have in retrospect. And one day I just made a very conscious decision. You know what? I'm going to just love myself through this, and I am going to use some nicotine right now because I am not well. And no matter how much I meditate, all the tools at my disposal, all of the years that I've been working on myself and healing and doing all the things I've done, we're just not cutting it. I needed that little extra crutch. And so then was wrestling with a bit of shame of feeling like I had failed and even with you failing you. And I had to really communicate clearly to you this little micro drama that I'm experiencing, this inner battle with this fucking molecule, and just I needed to kind of not get your permission, but I needed to know that you were going to love me unconditionally and that you weren't going to judge me because I know you're not a big fan of having like addictive kind of energy in our field and I wasn't either. We're looking to have kids and I definitely don't want that kind of energetic in our home when there's kids around even if it's sub-perceptual. I don't want daddy like needing things. So there was a lot of really wholesome positive intention behind it, but I just had to say like, "I'm out. Like, I can't do this right now, right now."
Mhm.
And it was interesting because the minute I used nicotine that first time after the 3-month break or whatever, I immediately felt calm and normal and everything was okay. Super strange. I
Mhm.
don't think that's all of the reasons. It was coming into an acceptance that my head is buzzing and ringing all day long and that it's just the way it is right now and I'm going to seek solutions, obviously, and I have great resources at my disposal because of the work that I do and whatnot. So I'm working on that, but it was a really rough time, and I want to thank you for your patience of just being with someone who is so cantankerous and moody and just losing my shit there for quite a while. It's been a long, long time since I've felt uncomfortable for that long. I have moments here and there throughout a day. Maybe you got a bad day here and there, but I mean, this was like day after day for a number of weeks. It was just like, wow, this is not cool.
Mhm.
And so that's the story of self-acceptance and of just acknowledging my limitations and also letting go of the perfectionism. It's like, why go to this much battle with myself over something that's relatively insignificant in the big picture. And so I feel much better, and I actually feel quite at peace with my, my nicotine use at the moment. And I'm also holding the vision that I can summon the resources when I decide to do so, to do it again and have a different experience and feel totally comfortable like I did those many years ago when I just cold turkey quit smoking cigarettes and never looked back. I know that that's possible. So, yeah, so the tinnitus, the nicotine thing, and then also had a vision months ago around one of my primary familial relationships and the sort of checkered past that we've had, and in many ways, just grieving a sense of loss and tragedy in a relationship that's just been so wrought with sadness and unmet needs and expectations for a very long time, and so I had, some insights around some things that I wanted to really communicate from my heart, and it was a very extensive and thorough, letter essentially that I was putting together over the course of a couple months, that included, deep and unexpressed gratitude and sincere amends for some of my behavior in the past. And just knowing that that was looming was actually putting a lot of weight on me because I felt that it was something just, it was a karmic debt that needed to be paid. And I needed to express my feelings in hopes of a resolution, not only within myself, but within the other party, hopefully. And I've not received a response to date. But the important part for me was that I saw things so clearly throughout my childhood and even my birth, that I had never truly expressed in a compassionate way, and it was an extremely cathartic experience, and so that was kind of looming at the same time, and I've now completed that, and that feels really good. That was a huge step for me this year, and like I said, legal issues that have just very recently, as of what 2 days ago, resolved themselves, which weren't ultimately going to be the demise of our lives, but definitely an interference in us going about doing our thing. And, so just a lot moving. And also, and I'll close, with this and then you can take the mic back. I realize I'm on kind of a long roll here, but, I used to dream before I was even capable of fulfilling my role in this dynamic of really holding space for a woman in a relationship, um, both emotionally and financially. I just have had this yearning just to be a man, just to grow up and be able to hold it down and just provide safety and resources and just allow a woman to really flourish, and to feel safe and to feel loved and taken care of. I've always just really wanted to take care of a woman. And, up until I guess, meeting you, really, I don't think I was truly capable of that in terms of dedication and presence, and also just really stepping up to the plate in my life and in my career. And so, as I met you, and I think this would be really fun for you to explore from your perspective, but I meet you, this girl boss, spiritual teacher and shaman and author who's lived for 15 years in New York City without the support from anyone, just making it happen, just doing your thing, being very accomplished in what you do, and not needing a man in your life to do much of anything, And you can tell your version of that story, but you're a very self sufficient woman, grown ass woman, just handling your shit. And then we get together and we start this dance where you write your book and you put this opus of beauty out into the world. And I watch you birth that and just kind of stand by and observe your creative process and the beauty of you just in such a sincere and heartfelt and mindful way create something that is really a benefit to humanity. And then to see your card deck, of course, shortly after, but to see you go through the trials of not only the creation, but all of the politics that go on, which I was unaware of, having not written or published a book. Navigating the politics of social justice and just all this crazy shit that you'd think shouldn't even be part of a creative venture that's based out of service to humanity, but there it was. And I'm watching you navigate all of this, and you put your book out, and there's this I mean, your whole being was just like, "Oh my god, it's over. It's done. I gave birth." And then we moved into this dynamic, which I very much encouraged, of just allowing you, just maybe for the first time, maybe in your life, and that you can expand on this, to really just allow yourself to be and just to rest and just be at home and hang out and just be in your feminine and learn to play guitar and just do whatever you feel like doing every day with zero pressure to perform, to produce, um, to do anything. Just an invitation from me to you for you just to be honored and loved merely for the fact that you exist. And that's such a fulfilling experience for me to be able to provide that.
Mm.
And yet, let's keep it real, it's a lot of pressure to put on myself too.
Mhm.
Not because of you, because of the way that I like to do things and, building our home and wanting things a certain way. And I'm just a do it 100% in excellence in every way or don't do it at all kind of person, which has its benefits, but it also creates a tremendous amount of pressure at times
Mhm.
because I'm just full on. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. Um, so yeah, I think the culmination, of all of that as we've ended this year and finally gotten settled in our home, it's just been a lot, a lot of a lot of pressure on myself, a lot of pressure
Mhm.
on my ears and
Mhm.
all of that, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I've never once had the thought, for example, like, "Oh, man, I wish she would, like, put out another book or, like, bring in a couple bucks," you know? I actually don't want that unless that's what you wanna do because it's fun and you feel free and in flow doing so.
Yeah.
If what you feel like doing is literally just being in your life and existing and enjoying the moment, that's what brings me the most joy,
Mhm.
is to just bear witness to that, you know? So that's just a little bit of kind of, where I've arrived and perhaps why some of the last couple months have just been like, "Holy shit." And also and I swear to God, lastly, last thing I'll say, also one thing that I was really failing to recognize is the overwhelming, fear and confusion and grief of the collective
Mhm.
in the past couple years. And because I'm a person who likes to understand the nature of reality and I'm always seeking truth, that truth seeking takes me into some really dark places. I mean, when we're talking about the whole convict pandemic and all of that, I mean, I'm on Telegram, like looking at the gnarliest stuff about what's going on in the world. And there's kind of a morbid curiosity in me to do so. And it's something that I kind of can't stop doing because I just like to know what's going on. And we're at such an unprecedented time in human history that I feel like I'm watching the greatest theater ever created, you know? And so I try to objectively and in an unattached way kind of observe just the insanity of the world and the contrast of the duality that we're experiencing. But I recently discovered that it has actually taken a toll on me. There's a heaviness to the collective right now that I was really negating and thinking that I just was not a part of in a way, or just I'm doing my thing. I can keep my head together and not really be affected by it, but all of that has been affecting me, and just the impending doom of
Ho
financial collapse and just all these systems that seem to be just teetering on the edge of destruction.
how did you arrive to the realization that it had been impacting you?
I think just over the course of the past few weeks, and just the inquiry of waking up in the morning, getting dressed and going, I feel incredibly uncomfortable and there is no way to feel comfortable. And it's been so long since I've lived like that. And so then I'm, of course, um, invited into the inquiry as to why. Like, what is happening? Why do I feel like this? And so then I'm going in nooks and crannies in my meditation and in my different ways of taking inventory of myself and my life and looking in all the nooks and crannies and shadows and seeing like what is happening here. And that's one of the things that I discovered is that I need to acknowledge that this has been a rough time for everyone, no matter what your status in life is or how successful you are in different ventures and relationships, business, life in general. There is an underlying
Mhm.
current of angst that we're all feeling to some degree, and I hadn't really acknowledged that, and so that's how I discovered it,
Mm.
was just in going, "What is happening with me?"
Yeah, I think no matter who you are, no matter what spiritual practices you had implemented for however many years, it's inevitable that in some way, to some capacity, everybody's centers got rocked. That was the vision that came in as you were just sharing that last bit. And I'm not saying that when our centers got shifted, moved, whatever, that we weren't able to then return to our center, but it's been a lot of getting pulled out of known territories and out of our centers. The other thing, I mean, so much to unpack with your first reflection of 2022 that took a half 35 minutes to
Yeah,
share.
hey, man. If you're
No,
gonna go deep, that's my
yeah, no,
motto.
I'm here. Before we sat down, I was like, you know what, this is probably going to be a long one, and I'm here for it. So no, it's so beautiful, but I did take a lot of notes to unpack, and I'll just start with I'm grateful that you are doing this acknowledging. I think that it's important that yeah, that in partnership, that I feel acknowledged, that you feel acknowledged, that things are spoken of and are you become aware of certain things. And so for me, I don't know if you recall, but pretty much the whole time we've been together at different times, I have said to you, that I have had some concerns that just, yeah, the way that you do things, the way you move through life, and also just the dynamic in which we both felt called into exploring with me, letting go into my divine feminine, and just a bunch of things in this one recipe. That, yeah, that you would eventually hit a point of just like breakdown because of so much pressure and holding such a big container in so many ways. And so it's a bit relieving for me to hear that that you've come around to acknowledging that, yeah, there has been a lot of pressure and I have been holding a lot. And one thing that I had in my notes before we even got here was that, a few, like 3 or 4 of the things that have held a lot of pressure in them, 3 or 4 of them have also been incredibly long duration chapter things. It's not like something came into your field and you were able to alchemize it, extract the lessons, and it was able to dissolve within like 48 hours. I mean, the letter that you described, I mean, that has been a almost 52-year journey in some respects. I mean, not maybe not fully, but let's say a 30-year journey, that has culminated to that letter. That's a long chapter of maneuvering and holding and feeling and working your way to that letter. And then, with some business stuff, pretty much the entire time that since we got together and shifted from friends to being partners, there's been some business stuff that you've been carrying and holding and trying to maneuver for years. And then, the legal stuff, that was also, a year or two chapter, really. And so I just think that I wanted to speak that and acknowledge that that not only have things been pressurized and brought with them, some incredible depths and darknesses and challenges, but some of these chapters have been going on for anywhere from 2 to 4 to 30 years,
Yeah, yeah,
and they're
that's true.
just not reaching culmination points.
That's true, and what a gift that is to see some of them through, yeah, with, the one selling a business that I started many years ago, has been an ongoing thing that's kind of been in limbo, since really even a little I guess around the time we moved here or so, and it's like
Well, even before that too, it shifted before.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's and I think also and this is something John Wineland shared with me the other day in our interview here, for my podcast, and he was saying that, the masculine really needs completion,
mm,
right? And he went on to elaborate further, but that was the essence of it. And I was just asking him, why are we like this? Why are we like that? And I said, oh, well, we as men or anyone in their masculine needs completion. And when he said that, I thought, oh my God, I've got like 5 huge plates spinning out there in the ether that are not resolved. And it drives me nuts that I can't rush their completion or I can't fix them. I'm a fixer. You tell me in the house something's broken. It's like, boom, call the dude. Boom. It's like I can't sit with things just unresolved, loose ends,
mhm.
just percolating in the background. And but this is also part of the inquiry, part of the inventory for me is, looking in the nooks and crannies in this little dark night of the soul that I am just coming out of, thank God, knock on wood. Um, is kind of, well, what are the things that are unresolved and how much are they really weighing on me? And that was a lot of it because sometimes we have things that are kind of weighing us down, but it's sub-perceptual.
Yeah.
It's in the background. It's like all the COVID stuff. It's just this hum of noise, like, "Neet." It's like when there's a loud air conditioner on, you don't notice it, and then someone turns it off
And
and
you're
you
just
go,
like,
"Oh,
"Ah."
God, I didn't know it could be this quiet. I didn't even
And
know
you
the
feel
noise
your
was
whole
there."
system decompress.
Yeah, and so you're right. Some of these things have been in very long-winded issues that have just kind of gone on and on and on. And there's in some of the cases, there's really nothing I can do to speed them up. They have to run the course of time
Mhm.
and bring themselves to completion. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. So, I mean, I think the value and maybe hopefully some of the things that I'm sharing is just how important it is to really take time to observe where our energy leaks are and maybe to do so and to acknowledge them humbly and honestly before they get to the boiling point where you turn into a fucking volcano,
Mhm.
which is kind of what happened to me recently. I mean, I was aware of these things, but perhaps I wasn't really taking the time to slow down and really face them and honor myself and honor the pressure that I was experiencing as background noise,
I
because
mean, for like the letter, for example, and look, I totally agree. Everything's in its own perfect divine timing, but as your partner, I would gracefully and gently every once in a while be like, how's that letter going? Because with my gifts and sensitivities and things, I could feel the different layers of pressure and just yeah, energy leaks and just and things being held for potentially an unnecessarily a long amount of time. And so I would try to and there were times where you would be responsive and like the next day you might work on a little bit of it or whatnot, but yeah, sometimes I think
well, that's I mean, with that letter, it ended up a very thoughtfully edited version of that letter ended up being 14 pages,
mhm,
which, probably definitely the longest letter I've ever written in my life and the most dense in meaning
yeah.
and intention. But that's another thing that I've come to realize actually with you too in our relationship in terms of the roles that we've assumed. And this is something that goes, I believe, way, way back. And that is you in the position of my muse in the sense, that you're, inspiring me to write a beautiful song, although you have done that too. They're not whole songs, but bits of them that no one will probably ever hear because of my own insecurities. But we'll get to that later. Um, but there's an interesting thing that's happened in times where we've had any sort of conflict, where
Mhm.
you've expressed to me that you're dissatisfied with this or that. And rather than settling with a limited perception that you're just nagging me about something, I've come to see so clearly that you did, in fact, come here to this plane to find me, to inspire and bring out the very best that I have to offer. And the beauty in that is that you refuse to settle for anything other than my highest potential. And that is such a gift. That's such a gift. Not only to have that be the case, but also to be able to see that that's what's going on.
Mhm.
That on a soul level, a very old soul contract karmic dance that we've been in, that you came into my life that a few years ago when I first met you in New York City, and unbeknownst to me, you were going to be the person that really encouraged me to become a man in the fullest sense
Mhm.
out of your divine and unconditional love for me,
Mhm.
and so hey, what's going on with that letter? These little reminders, a limited perspective from a little boy that would be like, oh, why is she bitching? Why is she nagging at me? I'll get to it when I get to it, right? But what's helped me a lot is knowing that you're saying, where's my king?
Mm.
Not for you, for me.
Mhm. Yes.
And what a gift. What a gift to be able to spend your life with someone who's just constantly calling you up to the highest version of yourself from love, from a deep love.
Mhm.
And for that I'm so, so grateful. And it's an amazing tool. And I'm not, I'm sure there are many relationships where, mm, dysfunctional patterns and unhealed traumas and things like that are creating conflict, and one party is dissatisfied and is trying to punish or condemn the other, right?
Yeah, I've been in
And
those.
so, not to put these all in the same basket, but I'm talking about you, whether you even are consciously aware of it or not, calling the best in me forth.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's like, "Hey, what's going on with that thing?" And in my conscious mind will, in the immediate sense, sometimes think, "God, get off my back, leave me alone about that thing."
Hmm.
But there's an inner knowing that's like, "Oh, she's right. God damn it. I really do need to do that thing
Mhm.
for myself."
Yes, for yourself.
Right? And the maybe, and you can elaborate on what your experience of this is, because we've talked about this a bit, but not in depth. Maybe there's a part of you, if it even comes across as like a nagging or a reminding, maybe there's a part of you even that's irritated because I'm not stepping up to my highest potential, right? And so, as long as we both know what is at the root of your encouragement, no matter what tone it happens to take,
Yeah.
then it can be experienced as an invitation to share a really beautiful collaborative evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of examples as you're sharing, and I think it's been a mixed bag, and I can honestly say I don't recall a time where I felt a call to remind you of something or bring something up to be discussed, like, just from a place of whatever, lower realm, anything. Like, there's always a bigger or more divine or conscious awareness to it. But along with that, there have been times where irritation has been involved, where let's say I have gently, kindly, lovingly nudged a couple times and there's been no feedback. There's been no, what appears to be no receptivity to the nudge. And then if I see that thing growing in darkness or unnecessary energy leak or whatever it is, and then I feel a duty to nudge again. Yeah, sometimes in certain scenarios there's for sure irritation and frustration and some angsty energies mixed in. Thankfully, uh you over time I think have grown. You've always, I think on a deep level sensed, that I'm quote unquote the real deal or authentic, with my love or my spiritual gifts and things like that. But I think it did take you some time with certain gifts that I have and the way they work to like fully trust me and fully trust and how those gifts operate and that there's not these other things woven in. So some of it was a dance and some of it took time. But
That's very true. That's very true, because over time I have, um how long have we been together? 3 years or something?
I think so. Our
Almost.
first date was on December 31st,
Yeah, there you go.
I think 3 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew you as a friend, and I knew what you did in your work,
Yeah, I
and
think we met like 5 years ago or something.
yeah, so I understood that you have gifts and things like that, but it has been a process of me to see through the surface level of your wants, needs, desires, communication to me, that there's something deeper there, which is what I was just speaking of. It's sometimes it's, "Hey, I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
You're you're muddying the waters here, like, clean our fucking field,"
Yes.
especially as it pertains to other people in
Yes.
our uh, home and realm, which is something I'm learning. Sometimes it's a little of both, but as more time goes on and I see as we work through something like that and you bring something to my attention, even if it's perceived initially by me as like, God, why is she complaining about this thing or that thing? Now I'm beginning to see like, oh no, you better listen to her, man. She's got some serious gifts of insight. You're able to see through things. And I think this is really, not to discount your gifts, but I mean, this is one of the most potent aspects of the feminine, is that supernatural intuition, right? And the ability to just know there's a disturbance in the force, whereas the masculine is just like thinking about things from the neck up and logically working through life with less access to those subtle feelings and intuition, right? So
Mhm.
that's such a beautiful gift for the masculine to be able to have kind of an intuitive seer in their court, provided that that seer's intention
Yeah.
is of the highest love and not
Yes.
of control, coercion, manipulation, and so on,
Totally.
or that they're just expressing their unhealed trauma that they need to go deal with, right?
Totally.
And I think you and I have a pretty solid understanding of when it's some old shit entering our field that just needs to be worked out, and when there's actually some valuable insights that are being presented because there is something that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, I don't think it's really taken I can't think of an example where it took us a significant amount of time to figure out what was what. Like
Mm-mm.
when something's moving, something's occurring, it's very easy to pretty much in real time be like, "Oh, this is totally that. Just let me move this through my system. This is old," or like, "I'm really tapping into something. I need you to listen and I need you to work with me and what I'm seeing." But I wanted to go to yeah, just the addiction journey, and just kind of honor us and honor myself in that process and reflect on my side of that journey as well. For those who have listened to me being on other people's shows, probably where I've talked about it the most, just my past journey and in my divine intervention and spiritual awakening came from being in a very long-term past relationship where it wasn't until said divine intervention and the veil lifted for me that I was then able to have the illusion disintegrate, the denial disintegrate, and see how much addiction was playing a role in that entire 16 plus years. So the realm and category of addiction is something that's like I even feel it like in my chest as I'm speaking of it. It's played a very significant monumental role in my life journey. It can even potentially track back to like childhood stuff too, but especially as I was growing into young and middle adulthood. um yeah, and after the veil lifted, peering into the realm of sex addiction, which is something that, my previous partner seemed to be suffering very severely with, and that I was also playing a role in, by staying in that type of energetic system for so long and letting my own body be dishonored and not valued and respected for so long, and looking at just even that one type of addiction. I mean, there's probably countless types, but just looking into the cave of sex addiction, took me many years to fully walk through and look at every little nook and cranny of that cave. And so it's been huge for me. Um, and the irony is not lost on me that I somehow ended up in a marriage with someone who, yeah, you've been sober for 25 plus years, based upon your definitions of sobriety. And that's probably a whole nother conversation for another episode. But so, here I am in this really healthy, divine sacred union, and my husband is, used to really suffer from a lot of different types of addictions. And so it's required a depth within me of trusting myself and trusting you and trusting how God got us, like ushered us together, and just the river that it placed both of us into. And so it definitely brought up some stuff, and I expressed this to you along the way, but it was a little nerve-wracking for me at times to witness you in your dance with like the discerning of the nicotine, and is this the addiction talking, or do I really need to just like let the grip go a little bit, and just all the fucking like just minuscule examinations that we both went through just with this nicotine part. And also in witnessing you, once you shifted off of all the nicotine, like you said, from my perspective, the best way I can describe is that transference of energy, like going into some of the other supplements and things, and just watching this kind of neurotic's a strong word, and I don't want to use that
I
word.
think that's applicable.
It's like, yeah, it was just like
Compulsive.
compulsive.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely those types of energetics when just
Huh.
when I'd pop into your office to chat with you and like the 12th time that day, like using that one supplement. And I'm just like, okay, oh my God. Like there were a number of times where
Oh,
I
god.
needed to kind of just sit on my own and just like breathe and like really tune in and be really honest with myself the whole time because it's been a many, many, many year long, no fucking joke, hardcore fucking tumultuous journey for me to like unravel the traumas and abuses that I previously experienced and to like get so clear within who I am. I was celibate for so long and I mean just it I've put in so much work to arrive to a place where I'm devoted to truth, I'm devoted to the divine, I'm devoted to illumination, and so I I felt it really important for me at times to sit down and like ask myself the hard questions too, like what is going on here? What the fuck is really going on here? Do I need to be concerned? Do I need to call one of Luke's friends and like call in some support? Because I'm not an addiction expert. I've had my own hardcore lived experience, but I'm not an addiction expert. And so it brought up, I mean, I can even feel it as I'm talking about it. It brought up a lot of stuff for me and holding that space and watching you navigate it. I had my own navigations.
Well, there's a lot there, we've been watching the latest season of Intervention here and there, and I haven't watched that show in a long time, but I used to, watch it pretty regularly, and something that I've experienced that subjectively for so long, and that is exemplified so perfectly in that show. For those that don't know what that show is, it's a show about like they follow a drug addict around essentially, and then do an intervention on them and throw them in rehab and hope for the best. But what's always been fascinating to me about that show and what it demonstrates is how when you have an addict in the center of a family unit who is, from my perspective and my experience, um, outwardly appearing physically sick and mentally sick, but what's really at the core of it is spiritually sick. And I think that because an addict is so overtaken by darkness and so disconnected from God through that addiction, that the spiritual sickness infects the psyche of the whole family,
Mhm.
and thus you have codependency starts to emerge out of that, where other people in the family become spiritually sick, and as a result, often even physically sick, because the contagion of the addiction energy sort of catches hold
Mhm.
to other members of the peripheral family to the degree that they begin to be psychologically addicted to fixing and saving that person,
Yeah.
right? It's this really, really gnarly web
Yeah.
of dysfunction. And so it's not lost on me that you, even though, we're talking about nicotine, it's not like, I'm down on the corner smoking crack, but it's still the energetics of you're around someone and you're very intimately involved with someone who consistently needs something outside of themselves to feel
And it can
whole and
evoke the
complete.
concern that I talked through with you a number of times of like, do you think that you'll ever be able to get to a place where you just don't need to reach for something? And if not, like, how can we both arrive to a place at peace that not getting to that place is what it is? And also the concern I felt necessary to examine and bring up to you and have a conversation around is like with this transference that I'm seeing, like, what are the chances that this might transfer to something way more detrimental than nicotine
Yeah.
gum?
I mean, and I, of course, have sympathy for you having that experience and those fears, which are totally logical. Yet at the same time, my resolve in my foundational recovery from addiction is grows more solid every single day that I'm alive, regardless of what's happening if I drink coffee or use nicotine gum or kratom. It's like none of that even comes. It's how to you as the person looking outside, you could see like, oh, there's a progression here and this transference, right? Well, he quit nicotine, now he's doing more of this or that. But in my experience, and I don't know, this is perhaps not true for everyone, but the depth of surrender that I experienced when I got sober and the act of providence that I received and experienced from God is so far outside of this more superficial game of addiction. And there's a shield of armor around me that I've willingly allowed to be put into place through my humility and admission to myself how hopeless I was those years ago, that there is nothing in this lifetime that would ever allow me to cross that line, you know? But I can know that within myself and put my hand on the Bible and swear to it. But when you're the other person who loves someone and who's observing the same sort of energetic dynamics, it's easy to see why one would have fear of like, well, if he's kind of struggling with these little, more superficial elements of addictive behavior, what's to say that it's not going to flip and
And you
he goes into the spiral
And
of
even
the
if I
life threatening.
knew on a deep level everything you just said to be true, I still think it was a healthy component to bring this stuff up and to not
Oh, for
just
sure.
like, pretend I don't have those questions.
No, it's very healthy for you to communicate your truth, but it would also be healthy in a situation wherein the former addict didn't have that sense of confidence in their ultimate sobriety, right? I mean, this is there's probably millions of people have relapsed into hardcore addiction because of these self-justification and denial systems and because they start using other things that are kind of, not on their off limits list. Like for me, if you saw me thinking I could just have a couple sips of wine here and there, like sound the fucking alarm. Like that is not going to go well. I just know that, or at least that's what I believe. I'm just going to continue to believe that for my own self preservation. So I think for a lot of people that have struggled with addictions, that it would be a great concern because of the transference and something that I learned when I was in rehab when I was 26, because I had experienced this in my life where, say, I'd be drinking too much, and so I'd go a few days maybe without drinking, and I would just smoke the shit out of weed, right? And then maybe I would do some coke, and then that would get me back on the drinking, and then well, now I'm smoking crack. Well, I quit that, and then next thing you know, I'm doing heroin, and it's just like I could never manage what they called in rehab switching seats in the Titanic,
Mm,
right? It's like you can switch from this seat to that seat. You can not smoke weed, but go over there and drink wine, but the ship is still going down. You've
yeah.
just changed seats. And so I'm intimately familiar with this phenomenon, this dynamic, and and I also understand the immense level of self-deception and self-manipulation that addicts have the capacity to express. And this is probably the number one killer of addicts is their wall of denial.
Mhm.
It's so powerful because it's based in egoic delusion. It's a really powerful shell that gets built so that the addict's ego can proceed uninterrupted.
Mhm.
And so the higher self of the addict can't break through that and be like, man, you got to quit this shit. Check yourself into rehab. Your family's right. Nope. They're the ones with the problem. I mean, it's classic, classic stuff.
Yeah.
So your concerns are very, very valid, and also expressing them is absolutely non-negotiable. It has to be expressed because that's your truth, and you have to know um, that you're safe. I mean, I think one has to know they're safe in an intimate relationship to bring up any fear, no matter how rational or not it happens to be.
Mhm.
And so in my case, I mean, I have compassion for your fears and I can totally see where they're coming from, yet at the same time, I'm like, no fucking way. Like I'm fine. And I am fine. And to that point, and maybe there's one topic I would like to ask you some questions outside of this, but I think addiction is it's a really important topic and something I want to lean into more in my own content. And I think I've been resistant to do so because I've just put that behind me. And there were years where I identified as like, I'm sober, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a recovering drug addict, all these labels and this identity that had kind of been built out of that in an act of self preservation, and
Mhm.
wisely so. But there also comes a point, I think, for an addict wherein we're given the opportunity to actually shed that whole identity and not even think of ourselves as like a former alcoholic or recovering addict. And we're just a human being. We're a spirit here having this experience and evolving. But that's only possible if we've truly accepted that there are just substances that are completely off limits to us permanently in this lifetime. And then I think you can emerge out of that. But what I'm finding is that I think I have a lot to offer people in this realm, and
Mhm.
that's why I'm getting more excited about talking about it because I do feel more disidentified it from the addict experience, knowing that there's so much more to me in my life and what I'm doing here. But I do have a unique experience in that I've been to the gates of hell and I'm back and I'm here and I'm alive and I'm thriving and I'm fucking around with my nicotine and, having my little experiences here with it. The last thing I'll say on that, maybe, is that, the other day when I really went inward and I said, Luke, is this worth the fight? Like what you're going through right now? And I don't think all of the difficulty that I was facing was around nicotine, honestly. Maybe very little of it because I've quit nicotine before and I'm totally fine. I feel normal. I think it was just a convergence of all of these parts of my life at that
Mhm.
particular moment. It was just bad timing to try to remove what has become a pretty nice little crutch, you
And
know?
also one quick side note
Yeah.
is with the tinnitus and the you being off nicotine and yeah, the legal stuff, all the stuff that we've been talking about, everything happening at one time. Uh, we both are very adept at exploring, getting quiet, getting clear, and asking, what is the next step that needs to be taken here. And thankfully, we are very well resourced and happen to be friends with or know, many of the top, whether they're energetic healers, mystics, scientists, whatever. And so it was just interesting, the ping that I got with the one of the couple people that I reached out to. Shout out to Amy Budden, my hypnotherapist friend, who supported you partway through your journey with that. But then I also got the intuitive hit to reach out to Paul, who's been on Ceremony Circle. He's a Taoist shaman and professor and acupuncturist, and
What's his last name for people
Paul
listening though?
Alexander.
Paul Alexander. Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my earlier episodes when I first launched Ceremony Circle, and love him. We go way, way back to my time in New York City. He's like a former cop, and it's just he's got a really cool journey himself. But uh, in his very gracious and generous correspondence with me in your situation, I just thought it was really interesting. One of the downloads he got was just around tobacco. And he was like, perhaps some of this like battling and fighting energetics going on is that Luke is intuiting that part of what needs to be healed or moved or cleared from his system, even if it's an energetic clearing, is that tobacco is needed. And if he's got this staunch like, I've already said no to it and no to nicotine, well then that eliminates the spirit of tobacco. And um so it's just really beautiful. One of the things that we did from his downloads was I did 3 days with you. of a tobacco clearing, and that to me felt very healthy, very integrated, full of divinity. I didn't feel any wonkiness, weirdness, darkness.
And
And
I had some hape too
and
on
that was
one
the
of the
first time
3.
in many years, right? Like you haven't
Oh,
been
no, I've I've
well, well,
I've used it here and there, but it's not been part of my, you
in
know,
that form,
routine. Yeah,
in that form.
yeah.
But I also just want to give a shout out to the vultures.
Yeah,
That
tell that story, that was
that was
bananas.
so beautiful. So when Paul emailed me back, he said, I think you need to do 3 days of tobacco clearing with Luke with um, a vulture feather. And at first, when I read the email quickly, it said a turkey vulture feather. And when I just scanned it through the first time, I just saw the word turkey, and I was like, oh my gosh, we've got, from the time at Rome Ranch, when in a very sacred, honoring way, you took the turkey's life, and then I plucked some of the feathers from it, and we have those feathers here at the altar. And I was just like, perfect. So I emailed him back, and I was like, oh wow, we've got the perfect turkey feathers. And he reminded me, he's like, I said turkey vulture. And I was like, ooh. And I didn't have any vulture feathers. And it felt very important to me. I knew, I've got this many blessing feather fans and, many different feathers, but it did feel important to get vulture feathers then.
I gotta follow the protocol.
Yeah, yeah. So we did day one with, I felt intuitively clear to go ahead with one of my blessing fans to do day one of the clearing. But then I spoke a prayer and I called in the vultures and I said, if it's in your will, I'd really like to properly work with you in Luke's healing and clearing and guide me to you, guide me to where I can, with honor and deep reverence, receive a feather from you. And less than 24 hours later, probably 12 hours later, that prayer was in the evening. And the next morning, you and I are driving from where we live in Texas to another town about 40 minutes away. And we were only about 10 or 15 minutes down a highway. And no kidding, as we're flying down this highway, I look to my right and there's a pack of easily 9 or 10 massive, massive black vultures just sitting right on the right side of the highway. And I was like, honey, look, there's the vultures, there's the vultures. And I'm getting my phone to try to like pin drop or mark where on the highway we were so that once we're back from the dentist, I can somehow try to locate this exact spot. I doubted that the vultures would be there, but I thought maybe one of them would leave a feather for us, right? So I mark this particular area. We get to the dentist. I'm able to drive back by myself because Luke was picking up his brother. And so I'm driving back on the highway and I know I'm getting close to the area and I'm getting really excited. It's just me and our dog Cookie in the car. And as I'm getting to the place where now that same area would now be on the left side, right? Because I'm heading back home. But on the right side, there's even more vultures. There's probably, I'm not exaggerating, 15 to 20 massive vultures now on the other side of the highway. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I pull off and I park and I walk to that initial place, not where the 20 are across the road now. They're still there, but I walked to that first location and I have a picture of one of the vultures that's sitting on top of that sign. The Texas vultures are no joke. They are huge. And so I was definitely talking to a couple of the vultures and just asking, is there a feather for me here on this side of the road? And I was really kind of sweeping it and like looking. And this is on a busy Texas highway. So imagine, like, I don't know what the people driving by me were thinking as I'm looking for this vulture feather. But I was kind of laughing to myself too, just my life and how I live. It was just funny. And so I was talking to this one vulture, and it was felt pretty clear that there was not a feather for me over there. I did find another feather from a different bird, but then I decided to, when the coast was clear, run my way across this 4-lane highway with cars whizzing by. So I'm like making sure I'm safe, and I beeline it across. And as I'm walking toward, these 20 other vultures, I'm just like asking permission and letting them know what I'm entering for. And they all disperse, and some of them like like go up on the fence and just watch me. And oh, sorry, another huge thing that I left out was on the first location, those original set of vultures were taking pieces from a female deer. So there was a dead deer carcass on that initial spot. So it was a whole medicine journey of me, giving honor to that deer who was laying there, talking to the vultures. All of this was going on. Then I go across the road to where the 20 disperse. And as I walk to where they were, there's a massive male, there's a buck, there's a male deer with huge antlers, and it's much more fresh. So then I'm experiencing the medicine of that animal and, just tuning into that and facing that. And just, the fact that the deer is our main animal totem for our marriage, it was through Kayumari, the sacred blue deer, the power animal for peyote, who really played a massive, significant role in Luke and I getting together as a couple. Which is a story I'm sure on another podcast we've done. But so then I'm examining this buck, and I do find I am led to three vulture feathers, one normal size one, and two smaller ones. So I was able to receive three vulture feathers within probably 12 hours of asking to be guided to where to go and speaking that prayer. And the whole ride home, I was just crying and crying and crying. It was such a medicine journey, such a shamanic journey. Just acknowledging, I don't know if what I'm about to say is true, but even if it's not, it's still so powerful and divine. But let's just say, that these deer gave their lives and sacrificed themselves so that they would die and perish, so that they would call to them the vultures, so that you and I would be driving by at that exact time for us to receive those vulture feathers. That's just one possibility of the divine orchestration that was at play. But even if that's not exactly how it went down, still, I was able to stand before, two deer that had perished and were in their transition, and also work with and communicate with 20 so vultures and receive those feathers. And then the last two tobacco clearings, we were able to use the vulture feathers. It was, needless to say, an incredibly profound, like, Wednesday morning, casual Wednesday.
I mean, regardless of what degree of superstition or wishful thinking might play into these experiences we have, where ooh, maybe this happened because of that. I mean, we have to we don't have to do anything. I choose to step back and just go, in my life, there are no accidents. That is all on purpose, even that.
Yeah.
And thank you for risking your life running across the freeway to
Mhm.
do a clearing for me. And on that note, I'm glad you brought that up because again, this could be like addict justification. Well, shamans sit there and smoke mapochos or whatever they're called all day long. Mapachos, I
Mapachos.
never could say it right. I mean, you sit in ceremony and in a traditional ceremony, they're blazing tobacco, and it's part of it. Really is part of the experience and part of clearing the energy and the groundedness of that plant. And it does have such a sacred meaning. And this is something that I've just begun to explore in my recent life. But any addict could say, well, they do it and it's part of these rituals. We should do it too. But truthfully, when we did those clearings, I mean, they were very impactful and also helped to remind me that I have the opportunity to recontextualize my relationship with tobacco because these little things that I chew on, they're made from tobacco,
Mhm.
which I used to think they were synthetic nicotine, and I recently learned no, it's tobacco. So, the letter that your friend was so kind, the sort of assessment that he sent,
Mhm.
and you finding the vulture feathers and doing those clearing, it actually brought me into a deeper place of reverence with tobacco. And rather than seeing it as this adversarial hurdle that I have to overcome and that I'm weak and I'm a failure if I don't stop it entirely, that maybe it is something that right at this time that I do, I don't necessarily want to say need, but that can be useful for me in grounding in my own way. And that Perhaps it's not a matter of whether one doesn't do something or does do something, but rather the relationship and presence with which they're interacting.
Yes.
Now, any junkie could say, "Well, I'm using my heroin with presence," and of course, all justifications aside, I think there really is a lot of value in all of the plant medicines, heroin included. That's a plant medicine. Cocaine's a plant medicine, right? Alcohol is a plant medicine. Everything's plant medicine. It's a matter of context, right? And self-awareness and self-acceptance and understanding one's limitations also. And lastly on that, the other day when I just kind of felt into knowing that I had some nicotine in my car, which is interesting because normally if I quit something, I just throw it all away. I don't want it around. I'll throw it in the trash. But I found one way after I had quit this time in my car. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel like throwing that away. I'm going to just leave it in my car. And if the shit hits the fan, it's there. Probably won't use it. But I knew it was there. And I was going to run an errand or something. I was like, you know what? I'm out. Like, this is not working. And like I said, the minute that I did it, I was like, "Oh, duh. This is what I'm supposed to be doing right now."
Yeah.
I don't really know why, and at this point, I don't really care. I just know that I'm someone who observes what works and what doesn't, and, what I was doing was not working for whatever reason. Maybe I'll never know, but now I know what works for this particular time, and so I'm grateful and with
Mm.
reverence, I appreciate, our sacred tobacco, and I'm going to use it as reverently as I can, and if that looks like, addiction, so be it, you know? I'm gonna do it until I don't feel it serving me anymore.
Mm.
Yeah, and just accept myself with that. I mean, because that's part of the it's really part of the tragedy of addiction is the shame spiral, the shame cycle of it, right? Is the addict has the compulsion to use because they are feeling shame or discomfort or sadness, whatever, emotions or unhealed experiences, etc. they use, and then their intellect creates a shameful story around them using, that becomes so uncomfortable that you have to use again to overcome that shame, and it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, this cycle, and it's a really horrible way to live, and in fact, when I've worked with some addicts, over the course of my sobriety, and they're in a dance with something, and I can tell they're really not ready to stop, and all they're doing is really using their addiction as an opportunity to judge themselves and shame themselves. In some cases, and I'm not making this a blanket recommendation by any means, but there have been cases where I've encouraged someone to just keep using and use more and use harder and get it out of your system because the cycle that you're in of like, I'm not going to do it. Oops, I did it. I'm worthless. That cycle is going to harm you more than just going, you know what? This is where I am in my life. I'm a fucking addict and I'm just going to own it and I'm going to do it. And when you watch those shows like Intervention, you'll see that oftentimes the ones that go to rehab and stick are the ones that just take it to the bitter end until they're really, really done. And their relationship with that behavior has reached its conclusion. And for some, it never does. Some die. And that's just the way of things. So for me, I feel very grounded in my resolution and for the sake of your security, I will tell you here again, honey, I have never been more committed to my abstinence from the drugs and alcohol and things like that that caused me so much harm in my past, and I am indebted to God, to the Creator, for my salvation from that life, and I would never and will never discount that or devalue that or betray that
Mhm.
gift.
Amen.
Amen.
That's beautiful.
And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay. So Ray is excited to get ready to go into the next one, but okay, if you really want to ask it, go
Well,
for it.
only because I might forget later, and I
Okay.
wanna touch on something we were exploring before, and that was the energetic dynamics of the masculine feminine,
Yes.
and as I was describing you coming out of your very successful, proactive fiercely independent,
Fiercely driven.
fiercely driven and independent New York City shaman and author and all the things. What's it been like
Oh God.
for you? Which I, by the way, I think you've entered into this new way of experiencing your life so gracefully and so masterfully.
Ah,
I
thank
can
you.
only imagine how difficult it has been to just exhale and let all
Oh God.
the striving and achieving go. And I just want to honor you
Ah,
as I've observed you incrementally just let all of that fall away
ah.
and just be in your juicy new version of yourself. But there might be some value and for people listening on both sides of the masculine and feminine energetics of what your experience has been like and how you've navigated that maybe over the past year. We're kind of talking about
Yeah.
the end of 22 as we've now, by the time this comes out, moved into 23.
Yeah. It's funny that your intuition was insisting on bringing this up because I literally have that as my next thing to go to, but I was going to skip it and go to the one below it. So we're clearly meant to talk about it. So, all right, I surrender. One thing I might want to read. Can you reach my phone easily, or is it tough?
Yeah, I can get it.
Okay, because I think there might be something I want to pull from there. But yeah, to tune in succinctly to answering your question, it has been potentially potentially the bravest thing I've ever said yes to doing. Maybe, I think that's a very fair statement. I think I've done a lot of really brave and courageous things, a lot in my life. But the allowing of myself to experience my own being and to experience life in a way that is truly a complete 180 than what I've ever known up until this point, I think could maybe be the bravest thing I do this lifetime. If you really like, we could probably have a 4-hour podcast truly on just this one talking point alone and just going through like your previous life, my previous life, what happened when we arrived together, and just like going through all the nuances of how we got to where we are right now and these exact energetics we sit in this present moment. But I had been open to letting certain aspects of my divine femininity open up, like little bubbles would like reveal themselves here and there when I was living in New York City, still single and celibate. But I remember on the beginning of my journey and arriving to where I'm now, asking myself, like I literally had to start with asking myself, what even is feminine? What even is the divine feminine? I was starting there of asking myself if I even knew what it was. And
Huh.
yeah, I mean, I was
Hmm.
starting at before 101 level. And yeah, what does it feel like? How does it move? How does it express? What does that mean? Yeah. And so I've come a long way. But me being willing and courageous enough to even open up that door and ask those preliminary questions set me on this incredible journey that from the beginning, I never would have guessed it would have led me to where it's led me and also been as powerful as it's been. There's been other um, evolutionary pathways where from the get go, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a doozy of a ride, or oh, this is going to be a massive game changer of an exploration. But this beginning of this pathway, I didn't have any clue that it was going to be as potent as it's been. And yeah, I think it's been vital. And that's one of the reasons that I've let myself do it. And I've also, I, I don't know that I would have felt fully safe or or like it was time to do it had I not been in the container, the relationship container that you and I have. Um, Being with you has provided a safety energetic that I have not known until now. And so that safety energetic has let me feel and express and experience things that I otherwise would have never been able to. And so this is one of those things, because I think in years past I was just much more in survival mode and trying to figure everything out. I was having my awakening while a previous relationship was disintegrating, and a previous life that was all I ever known was getting blasted like a stick of dynamite. And also in the midst of this, seeing visions of the truth of who I am as a healer and my spiritual gifts, and being shown right out of the gate the visions of where spirit was wanting me to arrive to and walk toward in terms of how to express my gifts out into the world. And I could feel the boldness of all of those things. So all of that was happening. And along with all of that, the realization that entrepreneurship was going to be at play. So, all of those big things were occurring. Um, and so to now be, before all of that, I've talked enough about the athletics and, just being the best literally in the country with all of that and the pressures of that. And when I was a radio host, top rated radio host. So it was always this like kind of given known thing that whatever I do, wherever my goal is, whatever I've set my sights on, not only am I gonna do it, but I will be the best at it. Like it just I mean, I literally was born into that thread of experiencing life. I was the first baby born. I was born on New Year's Day, so by the time this airs, I will have just had my birthday. So I was like literally incarnated into making the news. Like I was in the newspaper because I was the first baby born in the hospital. So m- like I was,
You won first place
yeah,
when you popped out.
yeah. No, seriously, like that was and that's all I truly know that talk about divine design. It
Oh,
was truly
God.
orchestrated that way to be born into that way of experiencing yourself and experiencing life. Imagine then the deconditioning and deconstruction that I've had to allow myself to go through, layer by layer. So yeah, I mean, it's been a wondrous, beautiful ride, a very foreign ride, but it felt very necessary. And I think that yes, you and I have had a number of conversations of like, does this still feel right to you that we're doing life in our relationship in this way? Does this still feel right to me? We've talked about this a lot, but at the same time, I think it's something that you and I just organically kind of just got ushered into, like the system of us and the dynamic of our relationship and marriage. Just, I feel like the vision I'm seeing right now is just like this flower that opened up and was like, this is the flower available to you. And just a matter of do we both say yes to this in terms of you holding more of what would be categorized as the divine masculine in our marriage, and me letting myself learn and let go into the divine feminine. And it's felt vital, especially for the reason of what you shared in the beginning of me learning that I'm just inherently a valuable, worthy person. I'm inherently a worthy being.
Because of who and what you are, not because of what you do.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of us are plagued with this. Mine got the onset was a very young age with the athletics and beginning to identify my worth and my value in receiving love with like medals and trophies and awards and things. And so, yeah, I just knowing that the power of me, the magnificence of me doesn't change or diminish or shift in any way when I'm just being in our backyard, sitting naked, getting sun, or laying in the hammock, or making cookies. my light, my power, my worthiness, my value, if anything, I'm learning that it, like, flourishes in perhaps an even grander way. It's
I mean, from my experience of you, it it does. It actually wouldn't matter to me, say you were like, "I'm crushing it, I'm gonna write another book, I'm gonna build a website, make an online course, do whatever. Go speak at these big events like you used to do." To me, you would still be in your feminine if you were doing that I because it brought you pleasure
right.
to do so,
Yes.
and not because you felt compelled to make a financial contribution to the family, or you felt compelled to, derive your value and worth
From
from
external,
accomplishing something.
yeah.
So, again, it's one of those things, it's not like what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, right?
Right.
And I've observed in the time we've been together that not all the time, because the book was its own thing. I mean, that's just really, truly a pregnancy and a birth,
Mhm.
and then a what do they call it? Postpartum, right? Period. But aside from the book, because that's a huge accomplishment, but that's one single project. But I've observed that at times when you've, for whatever reasons, you've been motivated to do so, have started focusing on work stuff, and career has become important, or some particular venture that you're exploring. I've observed that it causes you stress at times, and if it's causing you stress, then I don't want you to do it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You see what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's like if you were doing those things in a way, say you were just like, you're learning guitar, like that's work. To sit down and practice guitar is a lot of work if you want to get proficient at it. But when I'm experiencing you in your flow of learning guitar, it's just this outpouring of creativity and
Enjoy.
joy and fun, and there's no pressure and there's no stress. It makes you happy.
Well, that was my intention, and that's a huge point of all of this is by me saying yes and you saying yes to us learning this container, I'm also learning how to enter into what I wanna say yes to even more clearly. I've always been pretty good at that. I have no problem having very healthy, firm boundaries. But learning what I wanna say yes to an even grander degree, and also how to enter into anything I'm saying yes to from a place of no pressure, just from a different, endpoint, a different vantage point. And the guitar is perhaps my greatest teacher in all
We
of
play
that.
us a song right now.
I mean, I would. I honestly don't think I thought about it and I would be willing, but these mics, the setup isn't like
Well,
ideal
trust
for
me,
that.
she's getting pretty good, you guys.
Yeah, at some point I'm sure I will. I'll share. It's just fun. But yeah, I mean, the guitar has been amazing. I feel like I was gonna try to say something else, so let me try and find it. I mean, um, yeah, I think there's also, I talked about it with Christina Marie. She was a ceremony circle guest. I forget what I call that episode, but something like calling all leaders of the new paradigm or new something. And I think that's also one of the things at play. And what we're talking about here is there is a massive shift in what is this like new form of leadership that's like being conjured and being asked for on the planet right now amongst the last 3 years of all this shadow extraction and all of these wild feels that everybody has been on. It's the universe and the divine energetics are calling leaders of a new texture. And so it's not like I said yes to learning my divine feminine for the reason that I'm about to say, but after I said yes, I started to see, oh, I'm also choosing and saying yes to being potentially a healthy example and a healthy embodiment of what this new construct and new texture, new essence of this new type of leadership that the earth is beckoning for right now. And that does lead me, I do want to read my friend Aaron Rose. He put this really beautiful quote card up today, and all I could write in the comments was truth in like all capital letters, giving each letter its own thing about 10 times. Okay, so his quote, sorry, our house is Wi-Fi protected, EMF protected, and so my phone runs very slow in our house. So to just open this one quote card, it's still not happening. So,
I could plug it into Ethernet for you.
my God,
You guys,
that's
for those listening, our internet works great. You just have to plug your phone into the wall.
it's not a normal house. Like you can't, yeah, like I
It's an
literally,
ancestral healing environment,
I
honey.
mean, no, it's great. And when it comes to just practical things like trying to open one Instagram post, it's
All right, you keep talking and I'll watch the load speed.
or can you just maybe plug it in? I don't know. It's gonna.
Okay, you keep talking and I'll handle this.
Well, that's what I was gonna say next. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not an inspiration for any reason, but maybe I might be an inspiration to someone already or someone now moving forward and just hearing that it's possible. I think too, because I have accomplished so much in my life and I've already witnessed my capabilities and gifts in terms of manifestation. And like I said, I know, I know, and this is not coming from a place of arrogance. It's just an exemplified fact that I have lived over and over again in my life. If I wanted to set my sights on a certain project and have it be like the world's most renowned whatever or the top ceremony gathering of whatever, whatever the goal or verbiage that I wanted to put on that, I know without a shadow of a doubt, like I can attain that. And so I just don't feel a desire to I don't care about proving myself anymore, and it's not like previously I was moving a ton from that space, um, but it's even much more less of about that now, it's like I know who I am, I know the powerhouse I am, I know if I wanted to accomplish X, Y, and Z, I can, and what I'm choosing for my life right now is to be less external. And, yeah, I said yes to flying up to New York to be a part of my friend's Quantum U event. I felt divinely inspired and divinely guided to do so. But there's been plenty of other offers and things that have come my way that I think, a lot of people would have jumped at the chance to say yes to, but I knew pretty much instantaneously like it was a no because it's just not in alignment with the exploration that I'm choosing and saying yes to right now. I'm just getting to know myself in such a new and beautiful way. And until my soul directs me otherwise, or until Great Spirit, Great Mother Earth directs me otherwise, I'm just going to stay in this. Has it loaded yet?
Yeah.
Okay, give it to
No,
me.
I can read it.
No, I want to read it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Aaron exemplifies this really.
And Aaron Rose was on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
people can listen to him speak on that one.
Yeah. So, and he's been a dear friend. We go back to like New York days together. We've known each other for a very long time. We are soul fam. And his post said today, this is Aaron Rose quote, the evolution of our divine mission is not about reaching a new level of external influence or apparent success. It's about coming into deeper alignment with God, with truth, with life. Period.
That's good, honey.
Yeah, so I think that sums it up. I know that was a long winding road. I mean, like I said, we could literally have a 4-hour episode just on this.
Oh, it's really good. I mean,
It's powerful. Hold that. The last thing I want to
yeah.
say is because I put making homemaking cool again. It's like, yeah, learning what a homemaker is. What does that mean to me? Learning my experience with homemaking, learning what I find joy in and what I might not in terms of being a wife, in terms of being a homemaker. There's just something so juicy and powerful in that element for me, and I think I've shared it maybe on some other show. Well, when my dear grandmother passed away about a year ago, I was very close to her, and on her death certificate, it listed her occupation as homemaker, and there was such blasting medicine in that for me. Like, literally the second that I read that, I got this transmission that went inside of me, and I've been forever changed since I read that for some reason. And I thought, it just took me on this whole shamanic journey of exploring homemaking and homemakers and what does that mean? And at what point in our society and in our culture did homemaking become not cool or something to not be proud of? And it's like, I don't know. I kind of want to be a part of the movement that makes homemakers and homemaking cool again, because I can't think of a role or a job or an identity. I mean, I do my best to be as formless as I can, but we are living in earth and we are humans, and our ego does like identities. And if I'm going to be a part of an identity, then let me be a part of the homemaking crew and making homemakers cool again.
Make homemaking great again. We can
Yeah.
get you a red cap.
Oh God, don't no. Do not open up that can of worms, please.
But no, that's funny. Again, the intuition. This is where I wanted to go because, and I could go off on a really conspiratorial tangent here, but I'll start by saying that I believe in the free will of all humans, male or female. And if a woman's heart's desire is to go be a president or start a company and be a fucking badass and produce and accomplish, and that's their heart's desire, I fully support that.
And I think there's something in, because for me that was an important part of my journey, was to know that I could do that if I wanted to.
Sure.
Learning that in the most expensive city in the world, I somehow found my way, that I did reach a certain level of financial freedom and independence on my own. And as a single woman living on my own, I did, create my own business empire and all of these things. And because I learned, and it was part of my thing. Like, I wanted to know that I could do it. I wanted to see that I could do it. And then once I knew and saw I could do it, that's part of the recipe that has allowed me to now embrace more this other side. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. There's like not quote unquote anything wrong if a woman is wanting to see, like, do I have that in me? And it's also nothing wrong if you never have that desire at all.
Well, to your point or your inquiry earlier about, why does society in general look down upon a female being in the role of being a homemaker or a mother, right? And based on my research, that answer is based in a very deliberate agenda.
Mhm.
And, I don't want to get too far into it. People can do their own research, but um, some of the different concepts and different evolutions that feminism have taken have been perpetuated literally by the CIA and by the state. Let's just call it the state, right?
Mhm.
Some people call it, the cabal or whatever, but the state. I mean, the enterprise that is the government, right, and all of its factions and all of its permutations. And there was a point, I think, around starting maybe in the 1950s after World War II and moving into the 60s, where there was an infiltration into pop culture that not to the benefit of females worldwide, created this imposition of an idea that because women had been oppressed, which they clearly have been and continue to be in many ways in many places, that the way out of that was for the woman to leave the home and enter the workforce. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that when all of the men, I'm speaking in this country, went to war in World War II, that they weren't paying taxes because they weren't employed. And so a lot of the women had to go to work. And the government really likes when there's two tax paying entities that they can siphon from in a family. And then beyond that, and again, this is like the more nefarious side of this, but it's just the truth in the way that I see things. The other side of that is that when you have an intact family unit, whatever that family unit is comprised of, there's a strength and an endurance and an independence that is less dependent on the state and is harder to control.
Mhm.
When you have um, disjointed families and you have absent fathers and absent mothers because everyone's out paying taxes and working, then you have kids that become dependent on the state and enter the public school system. So, not all of this phenomenon that you asked, well, why do we look at it this way? Not all of it, but some of it is by design, and this is something that I'm really happy to undo. And that's why I said I support anyone doing whatever they want with their lives. I mean, I truly, truly believe that. But I'm also in support of celebrating women who derive joy from making a home and from making kids and being a mother and being a husband. And I think that is of equal value to the most successful entrepreneur or head of state that happens to be in a female body, that
Yeah.
there's so much value in it. In our community here, there are so many women that, yeah, some of them also have careers and, have a public, persona and are doing great things, publishing books and doing all the things, but when I observe a mother taking care of their kids and taking care of their home, I have so much reverence and honor for that role, and it's such a noble endeavor. It's such an honorable endeavor, and it's so important to the fabric of our civilization that there's presence in the home, especially when there's kids involved, you know?
Mhm.
And so I'm fully on board with your, making you didn't say make it great again, whatever you said, making a homemaking
Cool.
cool again,
Yeah.
um, as an option, and I think it would be a great service to humanity for us to really rethink how we've negated and judged women as, I think there's like this viewpoint that's been created where a woman is perceived as like a trophy wife or almost some degree of like a whore for just having a man support them and staying
Yeah, like
home.
like like we're mooching off the
Yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah. It's like because you see this, and I don't think that I've really ever felt this way, but on both sides of the genders, assuming that there are just two still, fundamentally, biologically speaking, there are at least. Um, it's kind of a cultural meme that women, and I think more so even from women to other women, that they're looked down upon as having less value or being users or
Mhm.
mooches or something like that. I mean, there is kind of a cultural meme
Yeah.
of that thought form,
Yeah.
and it's so backwards, and
Yes.
it's so
Inverted, yeah.
it's inverted and it's destructive, and it's not right. And I think that we should, this is my soapbox here. I really think we should celebrate women's. You want to talk about women's liberation, women's freedom? Women should be free to live their lives how they choose. And if they, on their own volition, choose to keep a home and raise children, what more noble contribution is there?
Well, that's where, we do our part, however big or small it is, and like helping to reconstruct and redefine, yeah, what really is success, reconstruct and redefine what really is true leadership, like in this now time, somewhere along the way, whether partly through the feminist movement and all of those things, like, yeah, generation after generation, there was just like different brainwashing and different concepts that we got bombarded with that I think like shifted the mold and turned it upside down on its head, and everything got all.
You just reminded me of something. There was a marketing campaign, I think, created by Edward Bernays, I think is how you say his name, who is like the father of propaganda, essentially. He created a campaign for a cigarette company. I think it was around some of these facts could be wrong, but the gist of it is absolutely on record and it is a historical fact. This marketing campaign was to get women to start smoking cigarettes, because smoking cigarettes before this time was not considered ladylike, and it was very uncommon for women in America to smoke cigarettes. And they created this marketing campaign wherein they called cigarettes freedom sticks,
Wow.
and it was all about women's liberation. It was they used the abuses of the patriarchy in the past and the oppression of women as a tool to manipulate women into
Mm.
thinking that their freedom
Uh,
had to do with killing themselves smoking cigarettes.
right.
And it worked. And I'm sure it's changed by now, because fewer people smoke now in general, because of all, the obvious harms that it causes. By the way, the most of the harm caused by smoking cigarettes is all the pesticides and chemicals in commercial tobacco. It's not actually the tobacco, by the way. You can look it up, but probably not on Google. But that's just one example of, like, oh, let's, set the women free. You're equal to men. You should be able to smoke cigarettes too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's just one minute example
Well,
of the mind control that's been
yes.
perpetuated on women
Well,
by the
that's
establishment.
why it's more important than ever, that we tend to whatever consciousness, heart-centered spiritual practices that we feel called to, so that we stay connected to the fabric of our divine nature, of our divine truth, of our divine soul, of our divine being, and so that we're at one first and foremost from that place, and operating and moving from that healthy place of sovereignty, and hopefully less easily to be a prey of propaganda and all of these other things.
One thing about the homemaker on the energetics that I have found to be so valuable, and I'm so grateful that you've been able to provide this, is your gifts of intuition and your insights into other people
Mm.
have been so useful in helping me be aware of energy leaks and lower vibrational relationships that have infiltrated our home.
Well, I have purging of parasites.
Yeah, and this is actually in this calendar year that we by now have just come out of, this has been a huge part of my work, is up leveling my standards and my discernment for the kind of beings that I interface with in any capacity, friendships, family, and otherwise, but as it pertains to our home, because I think we're just enjoying being in our home. We don't have a lot of company. We have a friend come over here and there, but I don't think we've quite moved into the phase of entertaining a lot and whatnot. So if anyone's listening, you know us. Don't be offended if we haven't invited you
Yeah, we
over.
like
We're
literally.
just enjoying, like, finally having a home after living kind of on the lam for a year and a half,
Yeah.
unintentionally. But you've come to me and said, "What's up with this person or that person?" People that are working on our house and things like that. And I'm like, Mr. Go Easy, like, don't want to create waves. I don't want drama. I don't want problems. Yeah, we hired this person. They're doing a shitty job. It is what it is. We'll get through it. And you've been really helpful as let's just say the home maker, making our home in the energetic sense of alerting me to parasitic energies and just lower vibrational beings that I've unfortunately, and I've paid the price for this as you have, and I'm sorry, have been just unaware and asleep and unconscious, and just had less than less than high standards for. And so part of my work this year is just like, no, just pull the plug the moment someone shows their ass and is makes it apparent that they lack integrity or competence, for that matter, but especially integrity. Because I've let a lot of things slide just because I just don't want to deal with the conflict of undoing it, and I just want to get through it. And so part of the role that you've played, which has been so helpful, even though some of the lessons have been a little difficult for both of us to learn, has been to alert me, like, this doesn't feel right. And
Mhm.
it going back to earlier, you said, like, it's taken me time to trust your gifts.
Mhm.
And I've had to learn to trust your gifts, unfortunately, through getting burned by numerous people that you were, like, not so sure about. And I just thought, she's just
Or forget not so sure about, I would say this person literally is a psychopath or whatever.
yeah, okay,
Like,
yeah.
I'd be
Yeah,
very
okay.
clear.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
to the point of homemaking, I mean, that is I think what I'm trying to articulate here is you holding the space of the energetics of our home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm off building stuff. I'm hiring people to build homes and paint homes and, like, the actual physical container, but the energetic container
Mhm.
is what you've been so masterfully cleaning up and cleaning up our field, and,
Mm.
I'm sorry that at times I've been a bit slow to
Thank
acknowledge
you.
your gifts in that area, but I'm now seeing, especially in hindsight, like, "Holy shit, she was right." And that's a huge part of making the home and working in cooperation, right? And we're really collaborating not only to have the physical things of the house taken care of, responsibilities and buying furniture and cleaning things and fixing the pool and all of that shit kind of in the 3D, but more in the energetic dimension
Yeah.
of you being able to be like, no, this is our sanctuary. This is our home.
And that person brings in messiness, or that person brings
Yeah.
in darkness, or that person is distorting the field. And like, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, nothing will get me in mama bear energy or whatever, oracle energy, whatever it is that gets activated in me. Like, I'm a very kind, loving person, but I also am one to not be fucked with.
Yeah,
Like,
I can say that again. Yeah, your level of discernment is highly refined, and I really appreciate that. But to the point of celebrating the homemaker, I think that's a huge part of it.
mhm.
Whatever role each gender's in, it doesn't even matter. It's just you have to have polarity, right?
Mhm.
In complementary energies. Like if we were both all just kicking ass and hiring the guy and da 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 and doing the things, right? The 3D things. Well, then who's going to be holding down the space of like, wait a minute, how does this person
Yeah, like
feel?
looking at that bigger
Hmm.
container.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
so I think that that's it's a really valuable thing to share with people too, is to be able to use your strengths, like work on your strengths. Your strengths aren't necessarily to like go research the best garage door company in Austin and get a bunch of bids and have them come over and discuss the
Yeah.
logistics of it and all that. Like that's not your lane and it's not your best skill. I'm better at it, so I'm doing it. But you're clearly better at going, that person doesn't feel right. I don't want them in our home. you know?
Yeah.
And you've been right. I gotta say, I'm as far as my memory serves me at this moment, your track record is, I think, 100% at this point. So,
I
a
think I
a
would
bow
agree.
to our host here,
Aw, thank
and
you.
my wonderful wife, and, there's a lot more to making a home than like, "Oh, you're
Mhm.
doing the dishes and I'm in there, like,
Yeah,
sending
well,
someone an
I think
invoice."
it's just, yeah, another way, not that all homemakers are oracles and vice versa and all that stuff, but yeah, it's like one of the many systems at play at somehow bumping homemaking and being a mom at the bottom down to the bottom of the totem pole is, yeah, like downgrading and downplaying the significance of the power of those gifts, of that attunement, of that refinement, of that discernment, like those oracle level gifts, are really paramount to the health of to everyone. And yeah, so along, I don't know if there's anything else like along with the purging of parasites, parasitic energy, and then I also put just how both of us had big lessons in 22 around more authentic and honest relationships, lots of lessons and teachings there. And they don't all, like in the lesson of more authentic and honest relationships, those don't all 100% correlate to like parasitic people, but they're kind of in the same category. So I don't know if anything else comes
Yeah,
up for
it
you.
does.
Um,
It's the principle, "Keep holy company."
yeah. Yeah, I
And
like
and and
that.
in the realm of interpersonal relationships outside of business and, people working on your house and things we were discussing, some big lessons that have come in for me is there have been many people in my sphere of friends and community that I think are great people and aren't parasitic or toxic or anything like that. But I've had to reconcile with the fact that I enjoy some people more than other people.
Yeah.
And I've always just been so open, and if somebody's a kind person and I think they're well-intentioned and they want to be my friend or spend time with me or come to our house or they invite me to things and I'm kind of compelled to go, they invited me without really being conscious of how I feel around different people. I
Mm.
think that's been the big lesson for me is to learn to pay more attention to my state when I'm in and out of one's presence, and to actually to learn to honor that. And to me, keep holy company means to be around people that I truly enjoy being around, and that give me the opportunity to grow and to elevate, right? And so, since there are so many people in our community here that have similar interests, and there's so many social circles and whatnot, that are all kind of doing similar work in the world, and we all share kind of a worldview. And I think many of us have been called to Austin uh, as leaders and teachers in our own unique ways. And there's so many amazing, brilliant people here who I respect and are doing great things in the world. But I don't necessarily want to be friends and spend a lot of time with all that many people. There's just a few people, a handful of people that when I get around them, I feel charged, I feel energized, I feel
You can
enthusiastic.
be your full
Yeah,
self.
I can be my full self. I feel inspired. I really want to listen to what they have to say, and I feel that they really listen to me, and there's a high degree of presence in our interactions. And so, for me, it's been a little bit of a journey working through sometimes feeling guilty that I want to kind of keep my circle small, and that it's okay to just enjoy the few people that I enjoy, and I don't necessarily have to interact with everyone that wants to interact with me because they want to interact with me, right? And this could be interpreted as like everyone wants to hang out with me, but they do. Many people
Yeah, well,
do.
yeah, it's both things. It's one thing is we're very aware that like what he's saying is true for other people when they view us, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
there's
for
people
sure.
out there that be like, oh, I know that a lot of people seem to like Luke and Allison, but I just don't really vibe with them. I just don't really feel them. So we get
Right,
that.
right.
And also, um, in being with you every day and being your wife, I will say it's true. Like for whatever reason, like yeah, people really gravitate to you and people really want your time, your thoughts, your energy. Like it's I think for whatever reason, you could be someone very prone to that type of like grabber, siphony, parasitic, and not everyone, I'm not saying everyone has those intentions, but your makeup, I don't know. I don't know if it's your charisma. I haven't figured out exactly what it is. Like, yes, of course you're handsome. Yes, you're a hunka yummy man and you're smart and you've lived a lot of wild life experiences and so you have a lot of insight. You have a ton of great qualities, but there's something in your energetic makeup that I haven't been able to put my finger on that, yeah, that draws people to you in a pretty ferocious
Oh, you
way.
know what just popped in for me? Boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm someone who in my early life did was never taught boundaries, and
Mhm.
I didn't even know what they were. There was no separation between me and the primary caregivers in my life, and the energetics were very, very messy, and also just being abused and literally having my physical boundaries violated
Right.
in horrific ways and all the things. And so my relationships have, and then being an addict for so long and just all the dysfunction and codependency and all those relationships, I have never, up until very recently, truly known the autonomy that is available in boundaries, and how to practice discernment around the degree of intimacy that I create or allow in my interpersonal relationships. And so I've always just, at least since I got into recovery from my addiction, and so much of that life was about first healing myself and then committing my life to serving others, which is what my life is about. That's why I'm here, is to serve. But in that serving, because my serving was based on helping other people that were really sick as I had once been sick, I became very used to just messy people.
Mm.
And, and so as someone who's had very porous boundaries, someone who really enjoys and feels driven to serve and to help other people. And I'm not trying to paint myself as a saint. This is just the truth. This is just speaking very honestly. I really enjoy being there for people and helping people, and I have a lot to offer a
Mhm.
certain sect of people. So boundaries is the word that comes up for me, and this goes into the interpersonal relationships and social relationships, but this is also in business
And
and in our
work.
home, and
Mhm.
which is a new experience for me. I've never owned a home, so
Right.
that keeping holy company is really about keeping holy company within myself. Not that every person I have to interface with has to be an enlightened master. It's the holy company within my own being, and that I have healthy boundaries, not walls, that keep the sanctity of who and what I am safe and secure, and the sanctity of our relationship as an entity of itself, and your sanctity emotionally, energetically, so that you feel safe and your boundaries are contained. And I'm not having leaky boundaries that are then affecting you, which is some of the
Mhm.
stuff we've experienced this year.
Yeah.
And so it's been a beautiful unfolding and lessons in it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to have preferences about the people with whom I choose to spend more or less time. And that it's okay when somebody invites you somewhere that you say, no, I can't make it, or that somebody wants to come over or do this or that, or even things with work. I mean, I get all kinds of opportunities that are probably great opportunities, and I'm prone to people please and agree to do things and then later regret it because I didn't honor my boundaries. And the holy
Thankfully, you've gotten a lot better with that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of having these conversations, right? Is we get to illuminate these things that we're working on, and my intention is that anyone listening might find some corollary in their own patterns and be able to unravel them as a result of just hearing someone talk about them, right?
Mhm.
But I think that that's what it is, in terms of just cleaning up my own little social niche, and being okay with just having a few close friends and making sure that those are people that when I'm around them, I feel really fucking good. And I don't, what it is for me, the signal I get in my body when I'm not supposed to be spending time with someone is I feel cagey. I want to
Mhm.
get away. Like they're talking to me, and
You
inside
wanna escape.
I literally wanna walk away,
Yeah.
but I people please and sit there and talk to them, and not that they're bad people, it's
Right.
just the
You're
energetics of it. If I'm honest with myself, I don't feel like being in their presence,
yeah.
and the lesson for me is that's okay,
Right.
that I'm allowed to have my own autonomy
Right.
and my own preferences, and as you said, there are probably dozens of people around that get around me, and that's how they feel. They wanna
Right.
get away from Luke, and I honor that for them as well.
Yeah, and we're also at a place where we're not, unless there's some big insight coming, it's not like we're attaching narratives. It doesn't have to mean anything other than that's your internal energetic navigational system alerting you to something that you might never be clear on, other than you just know it's not in alignment for you right now. This
Yeah,
person is just not in alignment.
yeah,
So,
and I mean, for me, that's huge as someone, again, who's had just no sense of boundaries for most of my life, to be able to actually honor that, and also to value my time.
yeah.
It's like, dude, I'm 52. I don't have time to fuck around and spend my time doing anything other than what feels really juicy and nourishing and inspiring.
Yeah, that's another area I'm so glad to have seen growth with you in. And yeah, just thank you for your willingness to evolve and be receptive to how our gifts together dance together and maneuver. Yeah, it's been beautiful to watch you evolve in those ways. And
Feels good.
yeah.
It feels good to plug leaks. To have a leaky boat is a sense of doom because you know that, like, you're still floating, but something's not right. And
Hmm.
at some point, the bottom's going to fall out and you're going to find yourself underwater. So it's really good to just keep our mine and our energetic field tidy and clean. And that's been
Oh,
something that's been so valuable in our relationship,
yeah.
But it does take that trust, because if you have an insight about what one of my behaviors or how I'm spending my time or the people with whom I'm spending it, if I'm not keenly aware of your intentions and trusting your intentions, I could perceive that as like a bitchy wife that's trying to control your life or something,
Mhm.
right? Like, what do you care if I'm doing this or that? You know what I mean? It's none of your business. But I know that your intention is to keep our our field
Yeah,
at the
clean.
highest level possible and to keep it as pristine as is possible in a world of fluctuating energies and people coming and going and all of these karmic contracts playing themselves out and so many things are beyond our control. But tuning into that intuition and listening to my body when it feels anxious and agitated, when I'm in an environment with certain people or whatever it is, that I have every right to take care of myself and exit, which has been the case also with my tinnitus. You know, people that are tapped in, friends I've shared that I'm struggling with this, they're like, well, and you have as well. Well, on a spiritual level, what is it trying to tell you? Like, what is your body saying to you? And one interesting observation I've made about that specifically is over the past few years, I've become increasingly uncomfortable in large groups of people. It's just overwhelming to me. I'm too open. I'm just too sensitive. There's too much going on, and and what I value in my sharing my time with people is I value depth. And if we're going to spend energy speaking, you know, I joke around and stuff, and I like to have fun. It doesn't always have to be, like we're solving the world's problems, and everything doesn't have to be based on our enlightenment, right? But if I'm gonna spend time with someone, I really desire deep presence and depth. Even if we are talking about something superficial, I want depth of presence and connection with those people, and that's exceedingly difficult to achieve in a large group of people. But how the tinnitus has been such a great teacher is the noise that's created when you have more than 10 people in any environment that's closed, at least inside a building of any kind. It's excruciating when you have tinnitus to be around loud music, too many people talking, and the more people that are, the louder it gets. And so I've also learned that I can't go to, or I can do whatever I want, but I choose to not really participate in gatherings that are bigger than is my preference.
Well, I'm reflecting to the last two larger gatherings, even though they were both outside, both pool parties at two different friends' birthday parties. Both these friends, we both really love, but both times, I mean, it was all leading up to this, and you're already having these awarenesses. But those were the last two were on the drives home. You were just like, sweetie, like, I don't know, just please like keep working with me on this. But as I'm trying to sort this out, but I just can't do that stuff anymore. Like, I just can't, you would just say because, like, yeah, like the music and then the amount of people, and then you're having to raise your voice to like hear. And it's just like, you're just whatever place in your evolution or whatever's going on, that those types of environments are not. And I think, yeah, the tinnitus getting louder on the and as we'd be driving home, it would be flared, and you would just be like, I can't, I gotta draw a line here. And for a while, like, I can't go to any gatherings of more than like 6 people right now.
Yeah, well, that's become my new method of determining because I wanna go everywhere and be with all the people and do all the things, right? But now when I get an invite, I'll
Yeah.
say,
How many people?
how many people are gonna be there approximately?" And again, I'm not trying to be an elitist or anything, it's just self-preservation
Hmm.
purely.
Yeah.
But another huge lesson on that, too, was that when I started, doing my podcast in 2016 and subsequently started doing a lot of public speaking and going to these big,
Mm.
spiritual conferences and biohacking conferences and, interfacing with all these people and building relationships. I mean, I would have so much fun. I'd go up and give a talk, and the other speakers would often give their talk and just bounce. I mean, they would leave the event entirely. I'd stay there meet every person, and people would, want to talk to me about my podcast, and I felt so compelled to talk to every single person and just
Mhm.
show my appreciation and connect with everyone and all those things. And I would just thrive in that, in the energy of just being able to commune with so many people that were like-minded, and I actually gained energy from it, like an extrovert, right?
Mhm.
All those people would energize me, and something's happened without my permission or intention, and that is I'm becoming more of an introvert is kind of what's happening too, whereas these last couple big events that I've gone to, I wanna get the fuck out of there, like, I don't wanna talk to people, like, I don't
Mhm.
wanna be there, and yet it took me a while to catch up. and I'd be like, "Why do I feel so weird?"
Mhm.
And it's because I hadn't yet kind of caught up to my emerging nature of just wanting to be a bit more insulated and just solo-mish more of the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know what causes someone to switch from being pretty highly extroverted to being more introverted, but it's apparently happened to me for whatever reason, and that's part of the piece that I'm finding with it is just going, I don't know, something changed. Maybe it could be the past, 4 years of having some really profound plant medicine experiences and things like that that have opened up my field and just allowed me to know myself on a different level and have a different
I think too, you're resourcing your own power internally much more too. And I'm not trying to say that you would meet your fans or your community just to like get fed energetically, but like you don't need, I don't know, that kind of feedback or nourishment as much anymore. I don't think. So I think it's a culmination of a lot
yeah,
of things.
it is. But anyway, it's all good stuff and
Yeah.
it's all toward the goal of evolution.
The only other thing I'll say about the purging of parasites, by the time this airs, I will have just completed a milk cleanse. So I'm very intrigued. I start it in about 24 hours. But again, by the time this airs, I will be done with it. Super curious. I've done a lot of different cleanses in my life, including, holding strong, doing the master cleanse. Um, and yeah, I'm excited. I am more excited than nervous at this point, but a few days ago I was a little bit more the opposite way. Just because I've never been a milk drinker. This milk cleanse, you can only do raw organic goat or cow milk. And we've got farmers here that have this A2 awesome other level, very unique cow milk that I'll be,
It's the less inflammatory
yeah.
milk versus A1 cows. They produce the,
And
the
then the
nastier milk.
company sends you all these different herbal formulas and colon support formulas, supplements that you take, but I will only be drinking milk and some water. It has to be predominantly milk for 8 days.
I love that it's making you drink coffee.
I know the irony. So I've been off coffee for years and years and years. Gosh,
Which I think is insane.
and so but I'm a big tea drinker, like, I love my beverages. In fact, when we renovated this home, Luke gave a beverage refrigerator just for me because I would take up our other refrigerator with all of my drinks.
That is a fact.
Yeah, I love tinctures and, yeah, just playing. I'm like a little kitchen wizard with beverages, but, yeah, so, yes, I do matcha, yes, I do all these types of teas, but I haven't drank coffee in years, but on the milk cleanse, you cannot have any tea, no juice. Literally the only thing you can ingest, you can't have any food. The only thing you can ingest is predominantly milk. You can have some water, and each morning you can have a small cup of coffee with a splash of milk. So I'm like, this is so wild. But I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be a big reset. But I'm bringing that up because I intuited that this was a yes for me before I really learned all the components or reasons why you might want to do the milk cleanse. And upon researching more, one of the main things it does is kills off parasites. So I don't really know what all I've got
Oh,
going
I
on in
see.
there.
I see where you're going with this. Yes, the living world, uh, larger being parasites are being purged, and also the little
Y
microscopic guys.
Yeah, yeah, totally. There's just been a thing going on, even in experiences that I've had, just like kind of that bizarre little wackadoodle experience with that parasitic energy attempt and, just different friends and colleagues that I know who are really like pure-hearted divine beings, like really walking the path in a devoted way, but many of them are having these kind of strange, bizarre encounters with other humans. And these other humans are very parasitic in differing
Mhm.
ways, like just trying to extract and receive energetic power through whatever it might be, through attempting to like tear someone down, in hopes that by tearing them down, that person will get fed. Or, I mean, a parasitic behavior can operate in any number of infinite ways. But I just want to put this out there as an alert, as like a broadband service wake up call. Like, even if you want to pause right now and check your own self and ask your own self, like, am I operating myself? Like, even if in a million years you would never classify yourself as like an energy parasite, it doesn't hurt to just inquire, just ask yourself, am I engaging in any way with the world or in my interpersonal relational dynamics where I'm like trying to manipulate or trying to extract joy from another or extract energy or divine power from someone else? And if a yes pings in that you are doing that, again, it's just about examination and exploration. It's like, okay, then what is the root cause of that? Like, what am I trying to gain by being a thief of that person's joy? Or if you're a type of person that is a troll on the internet and just writing like really abusive or hateful or unkind comments in any way, like really examine that behavior because that is energy parasite behavior. That is parasitic. If you in any way are writing unkind or harmful comments online anywhere, you're an energy parasite,
I think
period.
I'm doing that because I write unkind comments about Bill Gates and George Soros and
Well,
the World Economic
thank you
Forum
for your
and the
honesty.
Great Reset.
Then you need to examine that, and
Fauci, I could go on and on.
what are you trying to gain from that?
Revenge.
Well, then that's something worth exploring there,
Wake
my
up, my fellow travelers. Take these demons down and cast them to hell. A funny thing on your milk cleanse, I want to
yeah.
just point out. It's this hilarious, and I might have mentioned it to you before, but it's so funny to me. And other guys I know and their female partners share this experience. But as people listening to your podcast may or may not know, I'm really into health and biohacking, and I know a lot of cool stuff. I'm always on the cutting edge, and
I know where
I've
you're going with
I've been
this.
into this shit for 25 years. I mean, there's always more to learn, but I gotta say I know a lot, right? And
And you do.
in our journey of wanting to get pregnant, and you being my wife, and me loving you, I've observed that, like rightfully so, you are someone who does not like to be controlled or told what to do. Even if
Correct.
it's coming from even if it's coming from a place of love and not sort of dysfunctional control. And I've observed in my life through self-inquiry that a lot of the things that I do to support my own health and vitality are from a place of just self-love and self-care, but there is also a huge element of control there, like controlling the way I feel, controlling my environment, wanting to feel safe, all of this sort of lightweight pathology. And so I've observed in our relationship when I am coming from a place of control and trying to tell you what to do with your body, you don't respond well to that, and rightfully so. And every once in a while, I'll be like, "Hey, honey, maybe you should check this out." And it's been a little bit of a dance for me in our journey of wanting to get pregnant and have some munchkins that because I think I know what's right, and it's kind of a collaboration, right? It's not
Sure. Yeah,
just, I
absolutely.
mean, if we're going to have a kid, I want the best possible outcome.
Sure.
And so I feel I've had a little more license to
Speak
intervene
up.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and suggest some things. But what is so funny about you, and it's just so cute, is that like with your milk cleanse, your friend Jordan told you about it, right?
Shout out to Jordan.
Yeah. So I swear to God, if like a week ago I would have been like, honey, okay, check it out. I found this great detox. People say it's really good for fertility and yada yada. And these are the benefits. Resets your metabolism, kills parasites. I really feel it'd be great for you to do. You'd be like, fuck no, I'm not doing no milk cleanse. But then your friend tells you about it, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling it. I'm into it. I got the hit. I'm going for it. And I'm just sitting over here like,
I don't know if that's like, I don't know if just instantly I would have been a fuck no. I mean, I'm not saying you're not accurate. There are certain resistances, or it might take me a little longer to come around to like certain supplements that you recommend for some reason. But I don't shut everything down. Like I feel
no,
into.
to your credit, you do. I mean, we did the hair test and then got you on some supplements and stuff like that. But, a week-long cleanse that's pretty hardcore like that is a big ask of oneself,
Yeah.
so I just thought it was cute.
Yeah.
It was my observation. I was
Yeah.
like, I could have been talking about it for a year, and then your friend says it, now you're gonna do it.
I don't know. You might be right. I think it was her approach too. I mean, I love Jordan and the way she messaged me on it, just like her message could not have been more filled with consciousness, mindfulness energy. I could just tell how she arrived to even sending me that message and the way she worded it. It just was done energetically very impeccably, and so that right out of the gate left me very open to exploring, and I still took my time with it. I was not an instant yes. I was like, "Huh." I literally sat on it and felt into it and took my own journey and my own process in arriving to a yes that probably took a week or 10 days. So, just because it came from Jordan, it wasn't an instant
No,
yes.
I know.
I
It's
chatted
just
with her when we ate with her and Adrian and then took the box home, and I even said when I left their house with the milk cleanse box, I was like, "I I feel I'm resonating with this, I'm if I don't decide to go through with it, I'll bring these supplements back to you." So I still wasn't even
this is true.
I take my time.
It's also just fun for me. I actually enjoyed this process, in our home here. We have all kinds of incredible healing tools. It's what I spend my money on. It's what I'm into. I don't collect Porsches. I collect like PMF machines and psychedelic Lucia lights and
Saunas and
saunas and
yeah.
hyperbaric chambers and red light and all the thing. I just love this shit. I'm just into it. I'm passionate about it. Helps me feel good, and it's just so interesting to me. But what I find fascinating is just letting you have free reign of things in the house and watching what you gravitate toward
Yeah,
and what you just completely ignore is really interesting to me.
yeah.
I'm just like, what makes her tick? Like, why does she go do now she's doing saunas a bunch, and
Yeah.
I couldn't drag her in the sauna to save my life a couple months ago. What changed? Or it's just funny to see you kind of work through the things in the house, and
I just feel very attuned with my own being, and I feel
yeah.
very attuned with divine guidance, and so I just move very healthily at one with, like, the web of
The
life.
one that's been pretty consistent with you is you like the ozone generator.
I do. I do
Yeah.
really believe in that. You can go to Luke's website and get 10% off. What's it called? For real.
Simply O3.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I use that thing multiple times a
We
week.
basically have our own alternative medicine hospital here in the house. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's just a cute observation that I make of you. I'm always curious what you're going to just naturally gravitate toward.
One other observation I just wanted to touch on, which kind of goes along with where we're at, is when I was meditating the other day, just things about our dynamic, things, reflections of 2022, so we can end this conversation on some intentions for this new year, 2023. But one thing that came to mind I just appreciate about us is our range. I feel like for me as a person and for you as a person, we both individually have just such range. She look in the
Just look in
chair.
the chair.
You little stink. Don't lick the chair. Give a kiss to mama. You're so smelly. You're so sweet.
Our dog Cookie, she's a very orally
She
fixated little
loves to
being.
give Cookie kisses.
She likes to lick the chair. She'll walk by and lick the
Hi.
wall.
Yeah,
She
we're talking about you.
likes taking in the information in her
Give
environment.
a kiss. Um, but yeah, I just was appreciating about you and me within our own beings, our range in terms of our humanness, our spiritual gifts, and also I was just kind of chuckling how the other night when we were on the third of the three vulture feather tobacco clearings, how we maneuvered so effortlessly from being up here where we're recording now in our ceremony loft that you can't tell on camera because the camera is facing the other way. But from our vantage point, I mean, there is just countless shamanic tools and instruments and aura mists and the altar and all sorts of stuff going on in here. And this is where we did the clearings. And then, like, I went downstairs and turned on like Love Island on Netflix, and I was just like, okay, cool. So we did the vulture feather thing. And like now I want to have some, gummy bears and watch an episode of Love Island. And I was just chuckling at how that effortless transition from such profound depth and spiritual energetics to just being fully embracing of my human self in the earthly realm of a streaming romantic reality show that I can't get enough of. So, yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the range of both of
I
us.
like that, honey. That's good. The range is good. I think, one of the many pitfalls for a spiritual aspirant is to take themselves too seriously.
Hmm. Yeah.
One of my teachers years ago, he said something to the effect of, Luke, never trust someone who's too serious.
Mm.
And he used to say it to me all the time. Finally, I asked him what he meant. He said, well, someone who lacks humor is completely engrossed in ego. Because
Mm.
ego is very serious, because ego's number one job is to stay alive. And it thinks to keep you alive, right? As the physical being. Yeah. So I always remember that if I find myself getting too serious or trying to come off as too intellectual or judging myself because I want to watch a shitty TV show or
Hmm.
like we were watching Yellowstone last night and I was like, this is kind of low vibe. It's very violent and it is. And there's some part of me that enjoys that. There's also a part of me that's like, this isn't good for me, but it's a goddamn TV show. Relax, like have some fun, let go. Can't be too perfect and pious and,
Yeah. I
you know,
embrace my goofiness as much as I embrace, my shamanic gifts. I love that, you and I just have such a good time, even when we're just driving around wherever in Texas. Oh, who's here?
it might be someone with mail or something. I'll check it out.
Oh, okay.
You just entertain the audience.
Okay. Cookie, should I try to hold her up here or do you want her to go explore? It, Cookie friend. Cookie loves she's our little security guard dog. Yeah, as Christmas time and my birthday time are approaching at the time of this recording, Luke has been I have been too, getting some gifts delivered. So that's the only thing I can think of as to who. Thank you for letting us know there was someone at the door, Cooks. That was a nice girl. So, yeah, by the time this airs, I will have just turned 44, and I can already feel like I'm excited for that age. There's just something about those numbers, that double digit, the 4 that feels really mystical and magical, and, so, yeah, shout out to me celebrating my recent birthday on New Year's Day. I'm a New Year's baby, and
Okay, I'm back.
cool. Who was it?
It was Marius.
Oh,
He had no idea we were going to be recording for 7 hours.
okay,
He was just
yeah.
going to show me some of the work he
We are
finished.
really going strong here. So
But
yeah.
you were talking about setting some intentions for this
Well,
coming year.
yeah, but also as I'm steering the ship here, as this is my show, let
I
me
don't know. I'm
just
thinking I might want to put this out too. This has been fun.
yeah, I think it's really good, but let me just well, speaking of one intention, we're going to start now, I think, to weave a little back and forth. So just bear with us because as you heard from my intro, the theme of this 2023 divine alchemy, reflections and intentions. So we wanted to cover both. But one intention that I have that is right here on my paper is, continued, singing, learning guitar, you and I making more music together, that fun little video that we had from a couple weeks ago that we just sent to a few of our friends. But yeah, Luke and I were just up here and I was actually playing guitar. He had a couple of the shamanic rattles and I'm so thankful that I just get gifted with melodies and songs all the time, just so effortlessly. So thank you again to God Goddess for those downloads and please keep them coming. I receive them and one of those came in and yeah, so we just had fun up here and that's something that I intend that is a primary focus for me individually to just keep singing. I've been playing shamanic instruments for many years and singing for many years, but especially learning guitar and especially co-creating with you more. It sounds like a lot of fun.
I think fun in general is something that I am not well versed in, you know?
Mm,
Yeah, I like play. Fun, yeah, I have fun, I joke around, I mean, I'm
we have a
silly,
good
we're silly,
time.
yeah, but taking time aside to really let go and play and have no intention other than just to play
Hmm.
is definitely, one of mine to just continue to lighten up and allow myself a bit of freedom there, and also, for me, the huge elephant in the room of like, Luke, why aren't you doing this every day? Is finishing my book,
Yeah, I
which
have
I
that on
started
here.
started 2 years ago. Now I'm feeling a wave of shame because when I start something, usually I get it done. But we, kind of suddenly at the beginning of that journey, felt that we needed to escape California like a burning building and move all of our lives to Texas. And then we went through a debacle of building this house, which was just wrought with disappointments and frustrations and failures
Teach
and
no teachings, teachings,
beautiful teachings. Okay, see, there you
please.
go.
Good Lord.
Oh God. Well, that's how it was being experienced at the time. In hindsight, yeah, a lot of beautiful lessons,
Growth.
and here we are. But at the time, I'm sitting there going, "Man, I need to get going on my book," and I'm dealing with a lot of other things,
Yeah, but
and
as you
so
saw with me, like the book is such the type of books that you and I will write and that I have already written, they're true living divine entities, And so b- because of that and because of the types of books we will birth, leading up, it's all perfect. From the outside, it's easy for me to see and just try to reassure you the best I can that all of these things that have been happening that you could easily view as like taking you out of getting the proposal done, I actually think they're all perfect divine components leading you to being in the correct embodiment that you need to be to birth the type of book that you're going to be birthing.
damn, girl, yeah, that's good.
And I'm not just saying that. It's very
Yeah,
clear from my perspective that that's been what's going on.
that's good. See, that's what I love about you and great wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
it's
yeah,
all
getting
perfect.
getting getting back on that, and I feel as we were discussing earlier, there's been so many of these long, lingering kind of open loops that are now finding their conclusion. So I feel like the space is opening up for that, and more importantly, for anything, I think probably for you too is really opening up to bringing a baby into the
For
world.
sure.
And so there's two massive creative projects at hand, and
Babies and books.
yeah, doing everything we can to help facilitate that. I feel like we've been ready for a while now and are really in a place where it just seems like what we're supposed to be doing and what we're called to do. And for the first time in my life, I mean, to say that I wasn't excited about becoming a parent would be a gross understatement. I've fought it really hard for a long, long time. So yeah, I feel very ready at this point to create our family, to build our family and add to our little foursome here of Cookie and Harry Gato slash Jelly and you. And
Yeah.
we have the home in place. And I just think it's the perfect time for us to expand in love and connection and that miracle. So I'm
Yeah.
really, really excited to call that forth with you.
Me too. Yeah, it's an exciting time and it's already been such a beautiful and rich journey already. So I'm looking forward to what's in store for this year on that note. One thing that I is not going away that I really want you to do if you're open to it. Um, so as much as my husband loves me and fully believes and knows my gifts are authentic, he's not really ever been so sure in his belief in card decks. So if you're open to it, I would love for you to give me a card reading from my own card deck.
Okay.
Let's do a like a 2 or 3 cards, whatever you intuit. If you want any support and how to do any of this, let me know. If you just want to do your own thing, that's fine. But I would love for you to pull a couple of cards, or however many you want to um, for me. For 2023, my intention is to call forward the power animals in this reading who most want to empower my 2023. What messages are most important and present for me to become aware of? This is
Okay.
so fun watching him try to shuffle my
Yeah.
card deck. This is sweet.
Going back to my poker days in Vegas.
Yeah. Thanks for being open to doing
Well,
this.
it's funny. It's not that I don't believe in card readings because as I said earlier around the experience with those deer and the vultures, I really don't think anything ever happens by accident, and everything is being orchestrated all of the time
Yeah.
in perpetuity. But for some reason, I don't know, with cards, I see you derive a lot of value from it. It's just not been a practice that I've felt called to use for whatever reason, but I'm more than happy to do so
Well,
now.
you also, though, a few weeks ago, I forget what we were talking about, but I said something about pulling a card and you were like, "I don't," you like were walking away as you said it. You're like, "I don't even know if I believe in that." I was like, "Oh, really?" Well, your wife happens to be a card deck author. It was just hilarious. So I just thought it would be even more hilarious to have
Yeah.
you give me a card
Okay,
reading
well, I've
today.
shuffled them. For those that are just on audio and not seeing the video, I have officially shuffled the Animal Power card deck,
Yeah.
and I'm going to randomly or not select the first card, and it is the lizard.
Work with
Work with
Dreamtime? I
Dreamtime.
see, because I'm the author, I happen to show all the messages on there. That is so funny. That lizard card, it's hilarious. It follows me around so
And for those
much.
listening, the odds of getting it are 1 in 75 because it's a 75 animal deck.
Yeah, so work with Dreamtime is a main message for 2023. Work with Dreamtime. Okay, I'm gonna have to feel in more into that one. I think it keeps showing up for me because I'm just not getting what the lizard is trying to express to me. So that's intriguing that that's the first one. So noted, and we'll continue to explore
Do you
lizard.
want me to buy you a lizard for Christmas and you can be with one?
We have them on our property.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so
Actually, ones that look just like that,
it,
those bright green ones.
totally. Yeah,
So beautiful. Didn't
yeah,
have those in California.
yeah.
All right, ready for your second card,
I am
Allison?
ready.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been guided to pull this card, which is the koala.
Oh, sweet koala, the let go.
Yeah.
Huh, let me tune into that in real time. Hmm, yeah, okay. That feels nice. I feel like there's something in the booklet. Where's the booklet?
Booklet's right here.
Let me open to koala really quickly while
Okay.
you're pulling. If do you feel like there's one more card for me or do you feel done?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're doing that koala. Koala medicine releases old grudges and difficult emotions, helps you offer forgiveness. What are you ready to be free of? What frustration, anger, or resentment can you finally give yourself permission to release? Skipping ahead, just as the mother koala carries the young Joey in its pouch until it's ready to be released, ask koala to help you let go of anything you no longer need to carry. Write down what you are ready to be free of and place the koala card by the list to help keep you focused and empowered in this intent. So I'm just going to speak this invocation to activate koala medicine. Dear koala, if there is anything I've been carrying that is no longer serving my highest, greatest good, please lovingly show that to me. I am open to clearing old energies or emotions that hold me back. I am ready to open new space within me. That's interesting because that's really been the work, especially just of these last few weeks, is opening new space within me. So, aho, thank you, koala.
Okay, ready for one more?
One more.
Okay. All right. Come on, lucky sevens. Octopus.
Oh, I love octopus.
Trust your multitasking powers.
Hmm. Yeah, octopus has also been a recent regular visitor, and every time he shows up, I always think of, yeah, just trusting the voyage to come, like becoming a mom, and like when you see all the arms, the legs of the octopus, and the message of trusting your multitasking powers. Yeah, just trusting in this new emergence that I and we have been stepping more fully into in a real and devoted way, and trusting um, that yeah, I'll be able to multitask in ways that I never have needed to before, because I wasn't trying to become a mother before, and now I am, and yeah, trusting that I can healthily hold the space of wife and mom and shaman and author and human and all the things in a really joyful way.
Yeah, when I think of a mother, especially with newborns, I think of them having a bunch of arms.
It looks like that.
Yeah, they're always like carrying a bunch of stuff and holding the baby and having a drink and doing all the things they're doing at
Y
the same time.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I think is that the first time I've ever had you do a reading for me from my own deck?
I think so, honey.
Thanks.
Yeah,
How did it feel?
it's fun. I feel empowered.
Honey.
I'm pulling the card.
Uh, so in kinda getting to our closing chapter here on this very long but fun voyage, let's stay with the theme of the animals. So what I did in the little bit of preparing that I did for our chat was I actually just totally when I was sitting up here one day, it was not something from my mind. I just got intuitively guided to pull random cards from the animal powered deck and have those messages from the animals prompt us into some closing pondering. So, for example, rabbit really represents fertility energies.
Woohoo!
So the question that rabbit is posing to us: what are you most bringing fertile energy to this year of 2023?
Um, Continuing to create the sanctuary that is our home, both
Yeah.
physically and metaphysically, sharing what I think will be my most generous contribution to the collective in the form of the book that I'm birthing.
Hmm.
And as we've been discussing here, growing our family, making little humans appear,
Yeah. Yeah.
or rather allowing little humans to appear.
Yeah. Inviting them in.
Yeah, for the great teachings that they, I assume, will hold.
Well, clearly already, right?
Yeah.
So mine is about that joyful creation energy, baby or babies, yeah, growing our family, the music and songs, small, intimate, fun gatherings.
With
Cont-
less than 6 people? No.
yes, with
10
six.
maybe, 10's probably good.
That's pushing it a little.
Is
I
it?
think eight or under.
Okay.
I think 8 or under is a good rule. Continuing to stay attuned and connected with nature. And one vision that came in that I just wanted to speak for the first time is like, I really want us in 2023 to take a warm beach vacation together.
I would love that.
Yeah, I think it's,
How's Quick Smala
I
sound?
mean, I'm always game for quick small.
Aleeks, if you're listening.
Yeah, yeah, we'd love to come back to our place of engagement and
Yeah.
many other fun memories. So yeah, those are some that feel really good to me. I have others, but I'll just continue on.
Well,
What?
you know, I think the ones that I offered were more about my immediate life, but I would like to offer to the collective, to our fellow shared humanity with whom we're actually just one. There is really no different people out there, separate people. Only in the world of form do we find that, but those other parts of me that I perceive to be other people, um, my hope and my wish is that for those that have awakened to the grip of evil that exists on this planet, that's expressed itself so much in the past 3 years, that we can collectively create a world with more equanimity and more fairness and more love and truth, and that we have the courage to uh, face and overcome those that seek to harm and exploit us, because they're out there and it's real. I think to spiritually bypass the reality of the duality that we live in isn't going to serve us, and it could, in fact, keep us asleep. So, what I would wish for all of us is to acknowledge the predicament that we find ourselves in at this stage of human development, zooming way out at this epoch of time, and really seize it as an opportunity to create the world that we envision, and to not get caught up in the obsession about all that is dark, and
Mhm.
just to keep seeking the light without ignoring the dark,
Yeah.
you know? And this is something with myself, because when I look at what's going on immediately in the world, even now today, it just seems like these forces just really want to destroy humanity, not to end on that note, but I mean, it's like, take a look at what we've gone through and the level of deception and coercion and manipulation and mind control and mass hypnosis, and how many people out there are still not even questioning what's been going on. And rather than to ostracize those people as sheeple and, create more division and that we're awake and they're not awake, that we can have compassion for the people that have been put to sleep by the propaganda we've experienced, and that we can just find our own lane and our own way to move forward in a way that's productive and inclusive of all people. Because we're at a precipice right now that it's a real turning point, and where I'm always trying to lean into, and sometimes not successfully, is that because we can only see the vantage point of where we are now, it seems very dark and oppressive. But if we can kind of project ourselves into the future, I'm hoping and I believe that we'll look back on this time as a transition and a turning point that was necessary, wherein these nefarious forces that have influenced our civilization for thousands of years are now becoming so aggressive and blatant that so many more people are becoming aware that we've been deceived in so many ways, and that we are in fact free sovereign beings, and that we were born that way and we deserve to have that. And the only thing preventing us from realizing that truth is our fear, and our fear is what that machine feeds off of. And so if we can move more into a stern faith in ourselves and in our shared humanity, that we can move forward into an age of enlightenment.
Beautifully said, and m- makes me think about how it's been neat for me to witness how, yeah, in these last few years, especially the timing. I mean, I literally moved in with Luke and Cookie. So my cat Jellybean and I left Brooklyn and flew across the country to move in with Luke and Cookie the weekend that COVID began. And so yeah, it's been so fascinating over the last few years to yeah, just watch and also honor how we are both inspired to share or hold space or teach or guide or be leaders in some capacity in this time. And it's so at times it's very similar, but there's also like some pretty intriguing differences, and I've really examined because you're much more outspoken about certain nefarious potentials or energies or people or however you want to categorize that. And yet every time I've checked in with myself or checked in with the divine in terms of what's my role, how can I best be of service for all, for the greatest good, time after time, every single time I'm always shown like just keep holding the line and holding the course for what I've been doing in terms of just like bringing people back home to themselves, bringing people back home to their soul, uniting them with their soul, uniting them with their heart. Um, and so that's what I stick with, and as opposed to having my own Telegram channel or or posting certain memes
Yeah,
about things, and so
it's the teenage punk rocker in me, man. I'm just like, fuck these guys. But
yeah,
to your point, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way to approach this. And in the
right,
end, does it really matter what you and I are doing ultimately? But
right.
your approach would be interpreted by me as this: don't fight the darkness, make the light brighter. Because darkness is only an absence of light.
Hmm.
Right? So getting caught in the quagmire of the darkness and going in to do battle with these ghouls is futile, really. It's like to have an awareness that there is an absence of light. Sure, we
Correct,
we don't want to bypass that,
correct.
that this darkness is present because of an absence of light. But
Yeah, and that's the key is exactly that. It's like I've been through enough dark night of the souls and shadows and scary territories in my life path. Like I don't fear facing scary energetics. I don't fear going into dark caves and examining. I'm not scared of like reading up about or asking you or learning about, certain people. Like I'm not afraid of that. I'm not leaning into that. I'm very aware of that, and I'm shown to hold the line of what I describe. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I'm not over here like terrified of like learning about Soros or terrified of learning about Pizzagate or whatever. Like I'm not
I didn't even know you knew about
I'm
Pizzagate.
not
Now it's
scared.
Balenciaga Gate, honey.
Well,
You gotta,
yeah,
you
keep
gotta.
up with the times, right? Like I'm not scared of looking at that stuff and making my own decision about that stuff. I'm aware and I hold the line of divine
Well,
unification.
that creates a great balance between us then, honey.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a sword in the fire, but my hand on the Bible.
Yeah. No, it's just been fun to watch. So let's see a couple more before we wrap. Um, Giraffe came in, and Giraffe asks, "What practices have most connected you with the divine or higher consciousness energies?"
Well, that would be very recently our renewed practice of morning meditation together
Yeah.
after going through the Vedic meditation course with Jeff Kober. Shout out to Jeff Kober,
Hi,
who's
Jeff.
been a guest on my podcast and a
In
long
a
time.
couple weeks, he'll be on Ceremony Circle.
Great, a long time friend and a great teacher, and that was a practice that I worked with for many years, and then went off and explored a bunch of other things. But when you again surprised me, and you're like, I think I want to go to Jeff's thing. I was like, what?
Well, I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was supposed to go.
Yeah, well, you followed your muse, right? And so now we're doing what you weren't prior really interested. You're like, I don't really like, and forgive me if misquoting you, but you didn't really express interest sitting doing nothing for 20 minutes
I
every
like
morning.
meditation. I just have previous experience with the Vedic way of meditating where you're prescribed and bestowed a particular mantra. And so, in that exact form of meditation, having gone through a course and learned it and tried it and it not really feeling like my cup of tea, I myself was surprised. I really
Yeah,
like Jeff, and I think that the timing of where I'm at in life, meeting Jeff, I think it just all felt right, and I've been enjoying it, this time around. So, I love meditation, I just wasn't previously loving
yeah,
the mantra type.
yeah, I got it. So with the giraffe medicine of connecting with the divine, I think that's probably my most meaningful single practice now. And more so because I'm sharing it with you. It's a really beautiful way to start our morning. And I think we've been pretty disciplined about it. And I do my best to not engage with the world before we do that. I cheat a little bit. I might check a text or something. I'm working on that to really just tap into that before I acknowledge the material world and get engaged as such. So that to me would be a really beautiful practice to maintain moving forward in the new year.
Yeah, I second that, been enjoying that. Let me see if one example on my end comes through. What practices the most connect you with the divine? Guitar keeps coming in.
There
It's
you
the
go.
ever-present friend. Just do a couple more. Stingray asks, for 2023, it wants us to tune into what brings you most peace and calm?
For me, time alone in nature with zero responsibility,
Mm, good.
time doing nothing in the void of,
Floating in a river somewhere?
yeah,
Water
yeah,
boy,
yeah,
Scorpio man.
yeah, celebrating the land
Mhm.
and just time staring at a rock,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that sounds good.
emptiness.
What brings me most peace and calm? Presence. Being present came in. Let me see if anything else. What brings me most peace and calm? I think really, really present, loving, uh, relational. It's an area I've just been growing and growing and facing for so long, and I'm welcoming even more lighthearted energies into. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. so we can wrap up. Spider asks, "What are your most magical attributes?"
I would say my unyielding curiosity
Mhm.
and my compassion for the human condition.
Yeah, that's a place where you have been helpful for me because I tend to, um I have a lot of compassion, but I don't even know how to put it into words. At the same time, while I have such tons of compassion, I also just have very low bandwidth or very low,
A
eh, a
threshold.
very low threshold, yeah, for people who don't put in the work, who don't take responsibility. So it's like I can understand when someone has certain human tendencies or neuroses. And I also instantly say no, and it's a big X out of my life if that said person is also literally just twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing about said neuroses. It's like, so you've helped me at times, like ask where I could try to insert or interject or a little bit more compassion in some instances. I don't think it's always warranted that I should do that, but at least you've helped me explore that more. Yeah.
Yeah, we help each other find balance, right? Because I'm a bit maybe too lenient with people, and perhaps you've been a bit more conservative. We're like liberal conservative in the way that we express
With
our
compassion.
compassion.
Yeah. Let's see. Bat. No, I don't want to ask that one. Leech. Let's maybe end with leech because you know my love for leeches. Um,
That was one of the things that caused me to be in
mm-mm.
interest of you yeah, because I met Allison many years ago, and I was always kind of checking her out on the periphery. She was kind of on my list of someone I might want to date at some point in life. And so at one point, you know how we do, we stalk people we have crushes on.
Mm,
And so I was stalking her online, and I found a YouTube video. It's probably still up there somewhere. I
it
encourage you to
is.
watch it, where she was in New York City, and she documented kind of in an immersive journalism fashion going to get leech therapy. And I was like, now this is my kind of chick.
Yeah,
That's my kind of girl right there.
that's a true story.
Finding the obscure things and just doing it.
Yeah, that was
So
a
leeches, yeah.
really life-changing time for me. I have so much deep reverence and love for leeches, and leeches ask us, "How will you be shifting from fear to love?"
Well, I think it's in the way that I described of really honing my consciousness to stay awake to the imminent threats in our world, but not to get stuck in them and wrapped up in them, and not to give them energy, just to take a peek, observe, keep it moving toward the solution and toward higher levels of functionality.
How will I be shifting from fear to love? I have to pee so bad. The only thing I can kind of think about right now is how full my bladder is. It's really taking my focus, but let me see if I can somehow connect into something. For those not watching the video, I'm currently holding my vagina. I forgot we're doing video right
Gonna
now.
get us kicked off YouTube,
Oh
honey.
gosh, I've got to go so bad. Okay, stand by. How will I be shifting from fear to love? Hang on, tuning in. Yeah, because it was showing me even recently how I traversed things. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of good that I'm ending on just like not being able to tune into the divine because I have to pee so bad.
Well, honey, we've been going for a while. I think
Yeah,
that's
this
fair.
is for sure my longest ceremony circle episode. I am not
Yeah.
surprised that it's with you.
Yep.
But thank you for joining me. Such an honor to have you back on. You've been on before, but not like you said, not since we've been married and living in the home. So this is a really special time, and it's just so good to wrap up 2022 and enter into my 44th year on this planet this lifetime and into 2023 having this conversation. And just like, yeah, I think it was important. Even if we didn't do this episode, it would have been good for us just on our own to have this time of reflection and tuning in to, you explained it, or we were at a teaching together somewhere at some point where, yeah, I was just re-emphasizing, like, the most important thing in a marriage is that you're both, like, walking to the same point,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
so I think conversations like this obviously help that to happen.
Yeah, me too, honey. Well, I'm so grateful to have shared it with you and share our life together. And I want to wish everyone listening the most prosperous and magical 2023 here on Earth. And if you're listening and you're still in a human body, you are a fierce warrior and you are
Yeah.
courageous beyond belief because to choose to come here at this point in time is not for the faint at heart. And so, God bless everyone listening. May you be well.
Yes, sending so much love and divine connection to the divine true fabric of each of your beings. Thank you for being a part of the Ceremony Circle community up until now, and hopefully moving forward 2023 and beyond. And we will sit with you again next time. Happy New Year, everyone.